This week's Off the Cuff is a giant-sized episode, bringing you episodes 36 and 37. 36 contains everything PlayStation, from the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, all the way up to the PlayStation 4. The reason 36 didn't make it out for November 14th is because I was too excited to go jump in line to get my PlayStation 4. And then I didn't feel like doing anything else that weekend except for play with my PlayStation 4. There's a trend. Episode 37 is everything to do with the Xbox, including the launch of the Xbox and the Xbox 360 leading up to the Xbox One. So please enjoy this giant-sized episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the dulcet tones of the Off the Cuff Quartet. Hello and welcome to Off the Cuff episode 36. I am your host, Michael Powers. Joined with me this week is Art Danner.
Hi.
And Joe Reed.
Hello.
And this week we are going to be talking about the launch of the PlayStations.
You forgot somebody.
Did I?
You forgot somebody.
Who did I forget?
You forgot Sean.
Oh, that's right. It's the return of the Sean.
Not anymore. Bye.
Welcome
Screw
back.
You guys, I'm taking my ball and I'm going
I'm taking my
home.
basketball and going home.
Funny story. There was a moment before we started recording where Danner wasn't quite sure he was going to be able to make it, and Chauncey was, and I was like, we're never going to be able to get you guys on the same episode again. And that...
Not saying me and Dan are the same person, but you've never seen us in the same room. That's all I'm saying.
We haven't.
Nope.
Have not. Danner, your Chauncey impression is getting really good.
Isn't it though?
If by good you mean horrible, then yes.
Sounds pretty spot on this week.
It does. I mean, it's kind of hard to play a dual role. But
Yeah, I've been working on it a lot, so.
All right. So
but it's even to the point where I could talk over myself.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this week on Friday, the PlayStation 4 will be released to North America. And by the time this episode goes up, I guess it would be the eve of the launch. So I thought we could talk about the past launches of the PlayStation. I have a couple notes about the games that were released with them, you know, the dates, pricing, stuff like that. But I was thinking maybe we could, as we hit each one, maybe we could share like our first experiences with each system. Maybe some of the things that we liked about them and some of the things we didn't like about them, or any, you know, other just memorable stories about them in general. So. And then maybe if we have time, we can go over some listener feedback, because there were quite a few comments on the last episode, which was our 7th Gen console awards. So, first up, obviously, was the PlayStation. It was released by Sony in North America on September 9th, 1995 for $299. It first console to ship 100 million units in 9.5 years. In its 10-year life cycle total, it shipped 102 million units. And the last unit sold in Christmas 2004. For some reason, it doesn't seem like it's been that long since the PlayStation was on, like when it stopped appearing on shelves. But I guess I never realized when it did stop. There was a redesign release for the PlayStation, which hit on September. Wait a minute. Nope. That was bad. Misreading my notes.
Good job.
As of September 30th, 2007, though, which keep in mind the PlayStation stopped hitting shelves in 2004, the games library had reached 7,900 games.
Wow.
Real
Good luck,
quickly,
collectors.
yeah, real quickly. How many of you have played all 7,900 games?
No, sorry.
In one sitting or what?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've probably played 50, maybe. I don't know. Danner, how many do you think you've played? Is he gone?
No, I just muted it and I forgot I did. I'm talking to
Good
myself.
job.
I was too busy working on my Shawnzy impression.
Which I have to say is we're coming along pretty well.
I don't like to pat myself on the back, but
I can do it while drinking a cup of water if I had to.
Toot toot, baby. So, I want to say we probably played about 40. I don't think I've played nearly as many as you have.
All right, but so basically what we're saying is, first of all, we didn't know there were 7,900 games for the system, and second, none of us have played anywhere near to all those games. Is basically what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah. I'd be concerned if you had.
Yeah. Some of the launch games when the PlayStation released in 1995 were among the list. I'm just gonna shoot down them here, and maybe we can just kind of go over them if we actually played them. Was Air Combat, Aquanauts Holiday, Battle Arena Toshinde, ESPN Extreme Games, Jumping Flash, Kileak the DNA Imperative, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Power Serve 3D Tennis, The First Rayman, Ridge Racer, Street Fighter the Movie, The Raiden Project, Total Eclipse Turbo, and Zero Divide. Has anyone here played any of these games, or did any of you have a PlayStation when it launched?
No.
I did not have a PlayStation, and it does not sound like I played any of those games.
So, Danner, or did you mute yourself again?
I played. I think I played Battle. Or what was it, Battle Arena Toshida?
Toshinde, yeah.
Toshinde.
Toshinden. It ends in den.
And that would probably been it.
So what was your guys' first experience with the PlayStation then? It sounds like none of us had it when it launched. What was it about the PlayStation that drew you to it, or or turned you off to it? Joe, why don't you go ahead and start us off here?
When the PlayStation 1 launched, I was a diehard Nintendo fan, and I was a kid at the time and not able to really articulate why I didn't like things or why I did like things, and it was mostly out of that. I guess the Sega Nintendo battle really turned me into a Nintendo fan because they encouraged you to pick sides, and so when the Sony dropped, I had no interest in it, and the first time that I played it, I was staying with my cousin at his house, and we went to the local video store and rented one. And the first game that I played on that was Schneike's Ice Cream Truck Driving Combat.
Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal was the Twisted Metal game, and this was before the DualShock had launched, and it just had the D-pad and the buttons. And was this before or after the N64? I'm wondering if I knew what the N64 graphics looked like when I played this thing.
Well, didn't the N64 launch in 1995? I think it did.
I should know that.
I think it did.
Nintendo fan.
I think it launched the same month actually as the PlayStation.
Yeah, if it launched at the same time, I had an N64 at launch, and I was smart enough to know that the graphics on that system were hideous, and I didn't too much care for the game at all, and I don't think I spent too long with it. I know we rented 2 games, but the other one is so completely forgettable that I don't even know what it was.
All right.
But that was my first experience with it, and I wasn't impressed with anything enough to even bother with it again.
So when did you fall in love with the PlayStation, or did you never fall in love with the PlayStation?
I hated the system.
Okay.
Never
Dana?
touched it.
Final Fantasy VII.
Enough said.
That was my first experience with the PlayStation. I've said this before. I was a diehard. I'm a game fan. I've never been a system fan. I've always been a fan of the games. I would sell your mama for the right games. System loyalty was never a thing to me. And for me back then, Final Fantasy VII was my game, or Final Fantasy in general was my game series. So the moment I found out when N64 was coming out that PlayStation was getting Final Fantasy, I was like, well, see you, Nintendo. Done.
Looks like I'm playing my PlayStation from now on.
Looks like I'm playing the PlayStation from now on. I jumped when the new console generation started and it was between N64 and PlayStation. I jumped to the PlayStation.
Well, but
And I remember when that announcement got made, and in my little 15, 16-year-old brain, I thought, oh, well, so long, Nintendo.
well, keep
Good
in
job
mind.
cheesing off the third-party developers.
Well, keep in mind that the N64 and the PlayStation launched 2 years before Final Fantasy showed up.
Well, that's when I got my Final Fantasy. I think to me, I think it was as I wasn't interested in letting go of the Super Nintendo until the next Final Fantasy game came out, and I literally waited the weekend that Final Fantasy VII launched was when I bought my PlayStation.
Okay, so like, what was your first experience with a PlayStation? Did you play it at friends' houses or like a demo kiosk or anything like that?
I think much like Joe, I think Twisted Metal was my first experience with the system. I'm trying to think if there's any other games I played.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
I've never played a Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
That
The
was
first two
that
are
was-
so good.
That was the first thing I ever touched on it.
Yeah,
All right. Shanzi, how about you? Being that I've only ever known you as an
Like I
Xbox
said,
guy.
the very first thing I ever played on it was my buddy. Way back in the day. I never owned a PlayStation until they came out with like the what was it called? I think it was called the PS1.
Yep.
yeah.
Right, it was like the rounded corner one that was really tiny. That was the first one I ever owned. I never owned an original one.
So you never had
I
the
always just
manly
played my
one.
buddies. Well, I had the one that was easy because all I would do is I would move it from friend's house to friend's house. That's all we did. Whoever's house we were all hanging out at, and we'd take turns playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And first time I ever played Final Fantasy VII, I was about 4 hours into it, and my buddy came up and yanked the memory card out of the system.
Oh.
Oh yeah. And I never touched the game again for like 5 years. So not all of my first memories of PlayStations were happy ones.
All right. Well, do you guys
Much
have any?
like my memories of Danner, none of them are happy.
Oh, they're
Aw.
more like nightmares. The good nightmares. Sexy nightmares.
So,
Sexy time nightmares.
kind of like Joe and Danner, I went from the Super Nintendo. I was heavily in the Nintendo camp. The Nintendo Sega War, all that jazz. And I was being a subscriber to Nintendo Power. It was kind of like brainwashing material.
Oh yeah.
You got that magazine every month or whatever, and you read through it, and you always knew what Nintendo was doing, and they drip fed you information about things. And I remember being excited about the N64 when it was called the Ultra 64, which I thought was a much better name. And
But then there's no Nintendo there. Is it gonna be the Nintendo Ultra 64?
yeah, that's pretty much what it was. It's like the Nintendo Wii.
Oh, that's horrible.
No.
Yes.
But I I got an N64 that Christmas, like the Christmas that it came out. I was big in the Nintendo 64. I remember renting it from Blockbuster and stuff like that, and playing it at my cousin's house, and Pilot Wings and Mario and stuff like that. It wasn't until like, I don't know, that fall or maybe like the summer of '96 that I actually was able to play with a PlayStation. I mean, I knew it was out there, but I didn't know anything about it because I wasn't reading anything but Nintendo Power. I remember going over to friends' houses and my friend's house, and they had a PlayStation. I remember they had Crazy Ivan, which was like a submarine game, and then I think they had Twisted Metal, and I remember the cases. They weren't like CD cases; they were these giant cardboard boxes.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of those anymore. They don't hang around.
But
they probably all have melted and dissolved by now.
So I remember those, and I just remember not caring for what it was because I remember at the time I was playing Star Fox, and at the time Star Fox looked awesome. And some of the stuff in Star Fox still looks awesome to me. But I was never really sold on it. And then I think it was the next spring. So now we're in like 97. I picked up an EGM, and there was the little blurb in like upcoming games, or like it was Q-Man or like the rumors section of the magazine. It was like, it showed the picture of Cloud on a motorcycle with that sword. And it was a little blurb about, Final Fantasy VII. And of course I'm sitting there going, where the hell is 4, 5, and 6? Because not following any of that stuff, it's like, where are the rest of the games? Why did they jump to 7?
Meanwhile, he was playing his N64. So
yeah. So I just remember seeing that, and at the time I was really big into stuff like Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana, and I was really big into Square. I kind of started to follow like developers, and when Squaresoft revealed that they were jumping ship from Nintendo for Sony, I was kind of like, I'm out. And I remember going and I pre-ordered a copy of Final Fantasy VII from like Media Replay, or I can't remember what the store was called in the mall. It wasn't like a Babbage's or a Suncoast or anything like that.
I think it was Media Play.
Was it?
I have a vague memory of that, yeah.
I want to say it was that too. They had like darker colors, like black and purple.
We had one of those on Alpine years ago.
Man. Anyways, I wish I could remember the name of it, but I pre-ordered it from there, and I remember, I went to pick it up. My grandma actually picked it up for like a late birthday gift for me. So I had the game, and I went and bought myself a PlayStation memory card before I ever had a PlayStation. And I know I've said this before. I had both the game and the memory card for like 3 months because I didn't get a PlayStation until Christmas.
Well, it's kind of a theme with you now, isn't it?
I guess so. Except this isn't
buy accessories before actual system.
Except
arrives.
this is not 3 months before, and I was actually able to use said accessories.
If you could have bought those things 3 months before, we all know you would have.
I probably would have. You're right. So that was like, and by then I was just like kind of like in it. I was like hook, line, and sinker because I got, along with Final Fantasy, I was also introduced to Tomb Raider, and I was introduced to like other games, and then it was just kind of like the N64 didn't look so good to me anymore, because it really wasn't making any games that I actually cared for. I think one of the last games I ever got for my N64 was Mischief Makers. So
I remember that.
I hated that game because you had to use the D-pad.
What, instead of the joystick? It wouldn't let you use the joystick?
Nope, because it was a 2D side-scrolling game. It was vintage hardcore stuff. So it was like my first experience, my first experience and stuff. And then of course, you learn about the whole like the falling out from Sony and Nintendo over who was going to make a disc drive and blah 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 blah. And the rest is history.
In case you're not aware of that, the PlayStation 1 was originally supposed to be an expansion. The Super Nintendo plugs on top of it, and it was the disc drive that we would then be able to play CD games. And as they're developing this, with Sony and Nintendo partners developing this disc system, I'm not sure what made Nintendo decide to do it, but they went behind Sony's back, started courting Magnavox, not Magnavox.
I think it was Magnavox.
I think it was Magnavox.
I think
yeah,
so.
to make the CD, what eventually became the CDI. And before either system came out, before even any of the contracts were finalized, except for one important one, Nintendo said, "Nope, CDs are too fragile, and we hate load times." And they jumped off the CD idea and said it's not time yet. But that wasn't before Magnavox got a hold of Link and Mario and made their infamous crappy games for the CDI.
That also,
Nintendo created their worst villain by making Sony and giving Sony all of these.
I was
ideas
gonna
for
say, it
future
didn't really turn
consoles.
out well for Nintendo in the long run.
It did not. I bet they regret that.
the other thing that came out of that too was there were a number of games that were like in development for that platform. I know one of them was Secret of Mana. It had because there's an interesting thing that happens in Secret of Mana. Obviously, the game still came out for the Super Nintendo, and one of basically the story of the game is you're supposed to go and collect these 8 magic seeds to restore balance to the world. Well, what happens is the first 4 seeds that you go get, they have there's a really intricate dungeon and kind of a story that goes along with them, and you're learning more and stuff and all that stuff. The world is really fleshed out. The last 4 that you go and get, it's you land at the temple and you pick up the seed and you leave.
Well, it's because I bet they got done with 4 like shit. We need to do 4 more.
No, it wasn't that. It was they didn't have the space. It was space concerns. They had this game planned out with this the rich music that the Super Nintendo could produce and a lot of it was a really text heavy and art assets and whatnot to make this expansive world. And then the CD drives got canned, and so they had to strip back on the game to get it to fit onto a cartridge for a reasonable price.
I wonder if that's how the 64 disc drive got abandoned and how they then needed the expansion pack to release games like Majora's Mask and Donkey Kong Country.
Except the disc drive was still released in Japan.
And it came with the expansion pack, I thought too. Now that
I don't know if it came with the expansion pack, because I didn't hear about the expansion pack until after the DD drive stopped. But this is not.
That's because we never got the DD.
That's true. But this is not the Nintendo podcast.
No, sorry.
No, I went off on the tangent too, talking about Secret of Mana and stuff like that. But that said, I would actually like to see the director's cut of Secret of Mana as it was meant to be, because that is one of my favorite games.
I wonder if the data's out there.
So do you guys have any favorite moments with the PlayStation? Like anything like a favorite memory that stands out?
I do actually, but I think I might have already told this story.
Well, it was probably back when we launched the podcast, and now we actually have listeners. So
okay, well, I'll tell it again then. I guess it pairs into my second PlayStation story. The second time that I got my hands on one, I had a job at Toys R Us and was working on selling these things. And a coworker let me borrow his PlayStation in a couple games, and I took it home. And Final Fantasy was one of those games that I played, and everybody's telling me, "Oh, the graphics are awesome! Oh, the graphics are awesome!" And I kept having to tell them, "No, the graphics aren't awesome. It's the cinematics that are awesome. The graphics are terrible." And I knew that from the commercials and various things that I had picked up and watched and seen. But I put Final Fantasy in, watched it, the cutscene movie, beautiful, wonderful. Oh my god, this is neat. It's kind of cool. I like seeing these videos. And then the gameplay started. And there's Cloud at the train station with his disembodied arms and blank head and just terrible, terrible graphics. This is probably after I played Ocarina of Time and how beautiful that was. And that instant was as far as I played in the Final Fantasy VII. I was like, oh, this is terrible. I can't look at this. And I turned that off. But I will say I had a positive experience. I was playing Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation and actually Metal Gear Solid, whatever they called it on that one. I think it was just Metal Gear, not Twin Snakes. Twin Snakes was the GameCube
It was
release.
just Metal Gear Solid.
Tactical
Yep.
espionage action.
Enjoyed that.
Oh, shut up.
What?
Stop.
He's right. But anyway,
Stop agreeing.
Resident Evil. I sold many PlayStations to people at Toys R Us because of this story. I'm Resident Evil 2. You're in the police station. I've cleared out this level several times. This room, this particular hallway, cleared it out, ran up and down it several times, and one time I enter the room and the music is cut out, and I go, wait a minute, this is weird. And so instead of running through the hallway like I had a dozen times before, I'm creeping slowly through the hallway, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd probably had a 2 liter of Mountain Dew, and I'm creeping. Smash! The glass breaks. Arms reach in, grab my character. The controller starts vibrating in my hand. I squeal like a little girl. Throw the controller across the room and mash the power button, all in a matter of about 2 seconds. And that was the end of my Resident Evil 2 experience for that night, because I lost a whole bunch of time without saving it. But being able to talk to the customers about the Rumble feature, how immersive that experience was, I think I know that I sold quite a few PlayStations with Resident Evil 2 because of that. Got a lot of people gaming that weren't gamers otherwise until that point.
All right, Danner, we haven't heard from you in a little bit because you've been busy.
Yeah. I don't know. I have so many good PlayStation experiences. My favorite was towards the end of the PlayStation's life. My system was holding on for dear life towards the end. And we used to play... Most people who've played the wrestling games has probably played the SmackDown wrestling games that were pretty big towards the end of the PlayStation. Yeah. But me and my buddy really liked ECW Anarchy Rules. And we would make just the most outlandish characters for that game. My buddy Carl was notoriously always made the same character on every single game we played. And he made the Naked Native, which was literally a African-American guy that was as skinny as he could possibly make him. And the only thing he wore was a loincloth, but he would give him super heavyweight like moves. So super little itty bitty naked guy running around picking people up and choke slamming them like they're nothing, because we cranked his strength up and gave him all these super heavyweight moves, but it's this little itty bitty naked guy just running around beating the crap out of everybody. And then he also made a God, which was a 600-pound purple woman with an afro that would just come in and do like airplane swinging arms throughout the arena and just knock people over. It was, oh god, we had way too much fun with that. But the issue with the system was, with loading up all these creative characters, it would really tax the CPU, and it would make the system overheat, and the system was shut down after you played for 30 minutes. So we made a custom heatsink, and by custom heatsink, I mean we found a really big bowl, and we filled it with ice, and then we set the PlayStation on top of the bowl, so it would keep it cool. So the hotter the system got, the more the ice would kind of melt, and cool air would blow up into the system, and we could play for hours on end as long as we had a bucket of ice underneath the system. So, I mean, to me, just the ingenuity we had just to make that piece of shit work still was mind-boggling to me. The fact that that even worked in the first place was mind-boggling.
It's like the PlayStation version of using the tape to bend the cord on the original Nintendo to get it to work just right.
Yep. So, I mean, I had a lot of fun. The PlayStation is pretty much where my love for fighting games also died, because we had so much fun with. I still like the wrestling games, but the arcade fighters, like, we played Rival Schools on the PlayStation so much that we literally wore a ring into the game because we were playing it so much, and I had to buy a second copy because we had literally worn out the first copy, which I didn't think it was possible to wear out a PlayStation game, which I found to be true. You could play a game so much that it just you wore a ring into it. So those were my good, awesome, positive PlayStation experiences.
All right, Shanza, you got any?
Well, I remember probably one of my best memories of the system was we would play Tony Hawk Pro Skater and see how long of a continuous grind we could get.
So basically,
And that
you
was
just played the game.
No, that's how. If you could keep grinding, you could keep playing. As soon as you stopped, you had to go to the. There was like 5 of us all playing the same system. So as soon as you messed up, here you go, hand it off. The next person goes. And those are probably my best things because we'd get going and it would be. It got to the point where we're all pretty good. We could all pretty much go for like half an hour or so.
Wow.
Well, when you, I lived in the country, nothing else to do. It was either that, and the one cow was already tipped over, so I don't know what else to do.
It just seems like that would get really boring if you were the last person in line. I mean, not like playing Saints Row 4 boring, but I mean, it would be just all kinds of just, oh my god, he's never gonna stop grinding.
Well, it'd be get
So
to the point where like,
anticipating.
they'd get to a jump, and you'd be like, and you'd flick the controller. Or you'd like pull on the cord, yank it out of their hands.
Also, then you just get told dick moves.
A lot of dick moves there.
Oh, after like, okay, how long would you sit and watch someone else grind back and forth in the same half pipe before you're like, all right, you're done, smack?
Wait a second. Now, when you said dick moves, Mike, were you referring to the fact that he just said pull and yank? Because that's what I was agreeing with.
No, I was saying
Okay.
he was pulling and yanking the controller out of a guy's hands. I'm saying that's a dick move.
Oh, okay.
Shockingly, Danner's first thought was about men genitalia. Who would have
It
thought?
I thought he was literally pulling on the junk of his friends when he was younger, because that not really.
No, I didn't do that when I was younger.
I just assumed that you've always been this way. Didn't know this was something a
Not
taste you
until-
developed over time.
Not until I was older and really found the value of money did I start doing those kind of things. But that's just being an adult.
True. Gotta get that paper.
Yes.
Gotta earn that paper.
You're so white, man, when you say things like that. So white. Oh my god.
And you're not?
I don't say things like that.
So, the PlayStation for me, I didn't have. I mean, I've got stories to tell about my PlayStations. I was kind of brutal to them, or I've had bad things happen to my PlayStations. The first one, I think I went through 2 or 3 of the first PlayStations, probably 2. I remember I was into the PlayStation stuff about the time that some family stuff started happening, and I was starting to backtalk my parents and stuff like that. And
So the PlayStation made you an unruly child?
No, it didn't make me an unruly child. A girlfriend made me an unruly child.
But he had to pay
Girls.
extra.
And what happened was my mother, in order to try and enact some sense of revenge or some control over me, she decided to take a hammer to all of my belongings in my bedroom.
Oh my god.
So she trashed.
Your mom did this?
Yeah, she trashed my TV, she trashed my stereo, and she took a hammer to my PlayStation.
Oh my god.
Now, what's really interesting about this story is she took a hammer to my. I was not there when this happened. I came home to the aftermath of this happening, and my sister Lauren, my baby sister, who I love dearly. I was, I went in my room, and of course my PlayStation is broken. The disc that was in it is in pieces. The thing is beyond repair. And I was kind of like, what, what happened, and
Burglars broke in and all
Well,
they did was break your stuff.
and I'm told that I'm told, I was told what my mom had done, and I whatever. But my sister Lauren told me, she goes, "Oh, when mom took the hammer to your PlayStation, it would have been fine, except she left, and I told her that she didn't actually break it, and I showed her where the open button was." Because my mom had actually taken a hammer to it, but it had just damaged the casing on the outside. And then my sister showed her where the open button was, and she opened up the hatch.
The lens and everything.
She opened up the hatch, and then she took the hammer to the inside of it, which is why the CD shattered and the lens was all broken. And I was like, why would you do that?
It makes a better story.
So, long story short, I ended up getting another PlayStation within like a month, because then it was Christmas time again, and my grandma bought me one.
But think of what you could have gotten instead of that second PlayStation.
I still got all that stuff too.
You'll never know.
No, I still got all that stuff too. Christmas is a very
spoiled little shit.
Yes, Christmas is a very spoiled time of year for me, especially as a child. It's not so much that anymore, because I have money and I'm able to buy stuff all year round rather than having to wait till Christmas.
He spoils himself all year round.
Yep.
Every day is Christmas in Mike's world.
Yes, it is. And then another one, I think one of my favorite memories with the PlayStation is just like when you spend time with it. And I was playing Xenogears at the time, and you're sitting there and you're walking around, and they have those random battles that happen in most RPGs of that time, where the screen, like, you snap to another screen and that's where your battle happens. Then you snap out to an overworld. Well, I don't remember this happening with too many other games outside of Xenogears, but I remember walking around the overworld map, and then I could hear the disk drive spin up. So I'd be walking around and I'd go zit zit, and then the screen would shatter into the battle. It's like I always knew when they were coming. It was never a surprise because I could hear the disk drive spin up. No, it was just, it didn't sound like a 360 or a cow. It just went zit zit, and then the screen would shatter. And I was like, oh, okay. Other than that, my last favorite memory was with the original Spider-Man game. I had rented it from Blockbuster. I was super excited to play it.
Wait, you're talking about the one that was like narrated by Stan Lee?
Yes.
Yes, that was an excellent game.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that till just a second.
I brought it home from Blockbuster. I threw it in, and obviously, and I don't even know if you can do this in this day and age, but you can't edit a save card while a game is running. And I started playing the game, and I played for like 2 hours or something, and then I decided, oh, I should save it because I had somewhere to go. Well, I went to save it, but the memory card was full.
Whoops.
And rather than starting over for the 2 hours I had played, I left the system on continuously for a week while I played through the game.
If you did that nowadays, you'd come back to a smoldering piece of plastic.
No, I wouldn't be playing the game like that on the 360.
You don't play any games on the 360.
Nope, not anymore. So,
'cause I'm all alone.
All right, so let's move on to the next system here, which I think more people may have some stuff to say about. The PlayStation 2. It was released on October 26th of 2000, selling 500,000 units that fall at a price of $299. Let's see. It made $250 million in sales on its first day across all accessories, consoles, and games sold. It was the first console with a DVD player or drive. Sold over 155 million units as of March 31st, 2012. And more than 3,800 games have been released on the PlayStation 2. And it was discontinued earlier this year on January 4th after a 12-year run. Some of the launch games, which I do remember some of these pretty fondly. Armored Core 2, DOA 2 Hardcore, Dynasty Warriors 2, ESPN International Track and Field, the Winter X Games Snowboarding, Eternal Ring, Evergrace, Fantavision, Gun Griffin Blaze, Madden NFL 2001. I believe the first entry in the Midnight Club series. NHL 2001, Orphan, Cue Ball, Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2, Ridge Racer 5. Keep in mind the first Ridge Racer came out with the PlayStation. Silent Scope, Smuggler's Run, Street Fighter EX3, Summoner, Surfing H3O, Swing Away Golf, Tekken Tag Tournament, Time Splitters, Unreal Tournament, Wild Wild Racing, and X Squad. So, Shanzi, did you play any of these games?
Played Armored Core. See, I didn't have a PlayStation 2 till late in the game, till after I'd already owned an Xbox.
Had one at launch.
So,
Aren't you special?
Tanner, since you had one at
See,
launch,
what year did you say it came out in?
2000.
2000. So I was
5.
in 8th grade.
Same difference.
You're
You
a
old-
baby.
I was in
No, I'm just not old
college.
as shit.
I was a sophomore in college. I feel old.
So- But the good thing is, Danner, we were still both at the same reading level.
All right, so Danner, you had one at launch.
Yep.
What games did you pick up?
I picked up Smuggler's Run. I got my PlayStation 2 at launch. I got it home. I went to plug it. Well, I should say at college. I took it out of the box and I went to plug it in, and it didn't power up and it didn't work out of the box.
Oh, so just a history of awesome software. Fantastic.
I did drive for Grand Rapids to Lansing, which is a hour and a half drive to the nearest GameStop that had a replacement PS2 for me. That was awesome. So that was my launch day experience with the PlayStation 2 was driving an hour so I could get a replacement, which was awesome. But Smuggler's Run was the first game I had for the system, and I love that game.
But
That
yeah,
game was awesome.
whenever I bring it up, you seem to poo-poo it.
Well, because I think you think it's like
it's more fun.
this
to
game
poo-poo.
needs to be the best thing ever.
I don't think it's the best thing ever. I think it was really fun, and I'm actually, I'm just surprised that it completely missed this last generation.
It was a Rockstar game too.
So, and it amazes me that the driving in GTA is so bad, yet Smuggler's Run was so good. Did you pick up any other games at launch?
For some reason, I think that was the only one I ended up getting. I can't remember.
Not Time Splitters?
No,
I thought you were a Time
No.
Splitters fan.
I'm a Time Splitters fan,
Just
but
later.
I didn't get into Time Splitters until 2.
All right.
But it's gonna bother me now because I don't.
Well,
I want to say there was another game I ended up picking up, but I can't remember what it was for the life of me.
all right. Joe.
I can't. Well, I was still a diehard Nintendo fan at the time. The games that I was interested in weren't on the PlayStation. Generally, that means Nintendo first party titles were not on the PlayStation, so I didn't even look in its general direction. My first hands-on time with the PlayStation came after I got my job at GameStop in 2002 or 3. I don't remember precisely when that was, but from there on out, it was just horror story after horror story as I dealt with all of the customer complaints for broken discrete error systems and this game is crap. What do I do? Well, you go buy the only good game on the system, which is like Sly Cooper over there, sort of stories. But I couldn't even tell you what the first game was that I played on it. I didn't get one. I didn't actually physically have a PlayStation until one of my students, when I taught high school at the end of the year, gave me his old PlayStation 2. And I don't know why he gave it to me.
You bullied him.
No, I didn't touch him. He's a great kid. Great kid. Friends on Facebook still. He's works in Antarctica as a chef, I think. But I ended up sticking a hard drive in it and booting all sorts of illegal things onto it and copying things and playing them. But then it's not something that I actually enjoyed playing, with the exception of Shadow of the Colossus. I think that was the main reason that I ended up agreeing to take this PlayStation, because I never would have gone out and gotten one unless it were free. But played Shadow of the Colossus, loved that to death, and now it's sitting retired on the shelf back here because I have the HD remake.
All right. Well, like all the other, like the PlayStation before it, I got my PS2 for Christmas that year. Another spoiled story, if you will. My grandmother and my mother would go, and wait in line on Black Friday and at various different holiday sales and try and get, the stuff that my cousins and I wanted for Christmas. And myself and both of my cousins, we all wanted PlayStation 2s. And, there wasn't, as far as I knew at the time, there wasn't an option for pre-order. So it was wait in line or you're screwed. And I think it was my cousin who had a friend that worked at Target. And the guy called and said, I have, we just got a shipment. There were 4 PlayStation 2s that came in. I can hold them here for like 30 minutes. And my grandma ran up there and bought 3 of them. And it was really interesting because I wasn't expecting to get a PlayStation for Christmas, even though it's what I really wanted. So what I did is I made a plan to save up to buy the PlayStation myself. And I asked for a stereo, a surround sound stereo, just the receiver, for Christmas that had like an optical input on it. Like I was planning out my entertainment center ahead of getting a PlayStation 2.
So the center, just not the entertainment.
Right. And my grandma bought me the stereo. So on Christmas Eve, I'm over there and I unwrap, my stereo, and I'm super happy that I have it. Don't get me wrong. It's great. And my cousins, they both like unwrapped their PlayStation 2s. And of course they're in that awesome blue box, which I still have mine. And I wasn't like mad or anything because my cousin told me that she had gotten 3 of them, but there wasn't one, there was one that was like missing from under the tree. And I don't really remember what happened. I never said anything or anything like that. But my grandma just like, she pulled me aside, like after everyone had already opened up all their presents and as the night was winding down, and she was like, I can't remember what she said to me, but she gave me the 3rd PlayStation 2. So I ended up getting, my PlayStation 2 and my stereo in the same night, which was just completely awesome because now I had the surround sound to go along with it. But I remember the games that I had at launch were Armored Core 2, which I hated. After loving the first Armored Core game on the PlayStation, I hated Armored Core 2. Because it was so slow compared to the PlayStation version. They went for like this ultra realistic vibe instead of like a more arcadey vibe, and it just killed it. I also had Madden NFL 2001 because I had fun just throwing Hail Marys and running the score up super high because the game was broken in all sorts of ways, as only an EA game can be. And I remember having NHL 2001, and Jason and I played the ever-loving shit out of that game.
Part of me wants to go back and collect all of the old sports titles just because they're probably really easy and dirt cheap. Easy to find and dirt cheap to purchase.
That'd actually be kind of cool to see on a shelf. Like year after year after year.
Challenge accepted.
So, and Smuggler's Run. I never owned Smuggler's Run. I did rent it from Blockbuster because that was a thing back then, renting games. And I did love it. And like I said just a little while ago, I still can't believe that missed this generation, especially with all the open worldness that was going on. Smuggler's Run was one of the largest games I can think of on the PlayStation 2.
Sounds like I need to try that game out.
If you like driving and you like the whole they just drop
graphically
you.
It will not hold up.
No, it won't. But it's one of the. But I think I could be wrong. But I think if you actually sit down and you actually play it for what it is, you'll kind of understand why I don't. You might understand why I think it's odd that it missed this last generation, because the game is so simple. But it's a lot of fun. Basically, it's just like it says, you're smuggling, and in Smuggler's Run 2, they added like offensive capabilities to your vehicle. Instead of just outrunning things, you could drop like smoke bombs and oil slicks and some other things like that.
So defensive capabilities.
Well, I think there were some offensive capabilities too, but you're right. You're right. I'm wrong. Defensive capabilities. So do you guys have any stories that you want to share about the PlayStation 2? Any memorable ones?
I remember that was my first online gaming experience, because you could get the network adapter and hook it on the back.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, Danner, nothing?
I could go on for a very long time about all of the customer experiences I had, but it would I don't know. I don't think that'd be fun to listen to.
I'm not talking about other people's experiences. I'm talking about your experiences.
That was my experience with the PlayStation 2. Oh man.
See, I went through 2 and I never experienced any issue whatsoever. I never got a disk read error. Well, I take that back. I didn't get a disk read error until, because I had a launch one that worked, and it lasted me, various DVDs and games and stuff like that. It lasted about 4 or 5 years. And I opened it up and I sprayed all the dust out of it, and it lasted like another 3 months. And I think what had happened is one of my roommates in college may have spilled something on it.
I didn't tell you.
Right, because when I opened it up, there was some corrosion on the motherboard. And I think that's what was wrong, because when it was throwing up an error, it would just, sometimes it would read and other times it wouldn't. And I just replaced it with a new one, because the new ones had an infrared port in it and made it a better DVD player and stuff like that. But yeah, I haven't had any issues with any of my PlayStation systems, knock on wood.
Yeah, there were the few customers that would come in and return, exchange, or throw away their system, and I'm remembering one guy who had gone through at least 5 PlayStations, and this was before the unofficial silent, hey, we'll actually fix them for free sort of repair thing that they eventually did. But he bought 5 full price PlayStations. I don't know what game he was playing that was worth buying 5 full price PlayStations to continue to play it, to continue to have access to the game. After the 3rd one, I would really seriously reconsider my priorities in life and
you'd
go,
you'd
wow,
make it
I
to
really want to give them my...
buy I would buy the second one. And I'd be like, this happens again, I'm done.
Yeah, and at the same time, and I lost my train of thought. That's too bad. I felt bad for all the customers who were buying this over and over. I remember where I was going. Sony's PlayStation 2 sales numbers were so ridiculously high. I mean, I can't imagine that they weren't counting all of the people who had to rebuy the system 3-4 times as sales numbers, and I saw that happen.
You could also say that about the 360.
They might have reported those as multiple sales, but when those things broke and they kind of got caught realizing, oops, it was a design problem, they extended the warranty and replaced them for free. There was maybe a month of problems, but the dealing with customer service at the GameStop at the store level, either calling Sony or calling Microsoft took care of business. Sony did not.
Oh, someone unplugged their headset. Hello?
No, hello?
Was that's I don't hear my echo anymore.
I hear an echo. It's got to be Danner.
I hear an echo.
Sorry. Better?
Joe, speak.
Yeah.
Okay, how about now?
Way
That's better.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's just I've already, Allie having never been through like an actual legitimate console launch, and the fact that we have 2 of them coming to the house, I have told her, I said it's going to be a miracle if both of them work. So I'm almost expecting one of them not to work, just like I'm expecting PlayStation Network to not work on Friday. So
Yay, optimism.
well, it's kind of like if I play it low, then I'll be really happy and awesome when it does work, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just know that this is the way shit happens. So, Danner, do you have any memorable PlayStation stories that are your own, not other people's, not other customers?
I mean, I had a love-hate relationship when it comes to PlayStation because of GameStop, unfortunately. So, I don't know. I mean, it's...
Okay.
Sorry, I just cut the Yeti apart.
To people that don't know what you're talking about, that's a really weird sentence to say.
He accidentally, well, I don't want to say he broke my microphone, but the microphone I gave him to use to record this show broke.
Imploded.
And he's trying to fix it.
Yeah. I've had to go through, amazingly enough, this is going to be really sad, the only place I found to actually tell me how to disassemble this thing is a internet forum for the Calgary, Alberta Flames. Don't ask. I have no idea.
Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google. So yeah. So I want to say I working at GameStop really kind of ruined me on the PlayStation, seeing how many issues there were out there with it. Which is kind of disheartening in the long run. So,
But you personally, like, you don't have any fun stories about playing the PlayStation 2 or just, I mean, I know you said you had to drive an hour to get yours replaced, but like nothing?
I probably got to say that the best memory I have, I think, is how surprised I was by God of War.
I do remember you talking about God of War at the theater.
Yeah. I think that was the
first... I played God of War and said I played this before. It was Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox. I didn't get the God of War thing.
I like the way you say Ninja Gaiden.
What did I say?
I think it was because more so
Ninja Gaiden.
It was I like Greek mythology, and that was cool to me, and I just really enjoyed the game series in general. I shouldn't say that's a lie. I didn't enjoy the game series. I enjoyed the first one. The other games, I mean, there was a lot of games on the system I really, really enjoyed and had a lot of fun with. Dark Cloud was a game I had a lot of fun with. But there was also low points for me, like Final Fantasy X. The PlayStation 2 was successful on curing me of whatever love I had for Final Fantasy at any given point in time. So all the things that I really, really loved about the PlayStation 2 managed to destroy all that for me. The flip side of that, though, I discovered and fell in love with the Ratchet and Clank series.
I was gonna say,
and with Jax and Daxter.
I was gonna say, because can you really blame? I mean, okay, so you fell in love, all the stuff you loved about the PlayStation. Is it the PlayStation 2's fault that Square decided to destroy their own franchise? Like, that's not on Sony, that's on Square. Oh
no, I agree, it is on Square. I mean, it's nothing to do with it's nothing to do with the fact that Square
You're just mad because that's the side of that's the generation where Square went to hell, and you just associate it with the PlayStation 2.
Unfortunately, yeah, because I mean, we had so many great things on PlayStation 1 from Square. I mean, we had Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy 7.
Don't say Chrono Cross.
I didn't say
Chrono
I'm
Cross.
just saying, don't say it or I'll hang up on you.
I
Chrono Cross.
did it.
Good. Just hoping you wouldn't.
Let's not acknowledge that as even as a game.
Good. That's what I
Just
like to hear.
Pretend that it was never a thing.
Pretend that what was never a thing?
Very
Penis.
good.
Exactly.
Your penis was never a thing, Sean.
Ask your wife.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Oh, yes, because over the course of the last couple of podcasts, we're totally even.
I have no idea what you're saying.
I'm jerking off with my tear-laced jerkins as we speak.
All right.
Yes.
Well, do we want to move on to the PlayStation 3? Okay. All right. PlayStation 3. It was released on November 17th, 2006 for a price of $499 for the 20 gigabyte model and $599 for the 60 gigabyte model. And myself, and I'm sure everybody else in the gaming world, laughed their asses off. It was the first console with a Blu-ray drive / player. The system sold about 600,000 units in its first 2 days.
And 599,000 were returned.
Launch games included the awesome Call of Duty 3, Genji Days of the Blade, Madden NFL 07, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Mobile Suit Gundam Crossfire, Need for Speed Carbon, NBA 07, NBA 2K7, NHL 2K7, Resistance Fall of Man, Ridge Racer 7, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 07, Tony Hawk's Project 8, and Untold Legends Dark Kingdom. Let's see. I had Shanzi go. I had Joe go first. Danner,
Yes.
did you get a PlayStation? You didn't get a PlayStation 3 at launch. I know this because I was friends with you at this time.
I did not. And I was going to say the only one of those games that I've played is Resistance.
Okay, I guess this goes really quick. None of us had a PlayStation 3 at launch, correct?
Nope.
Okay. So dare I ask Joe, what was your first experience with the PlayStation 3? I mean, like yours personally, not customer experiences.
Oh, it's okay. We didn't have any customers for the PlayStation 3.
We drove them away from the PlayStation 3.
It wasn't hard. I mean, there was a period between January and April where we didn't sell a single unit. And it wasn't for, I mean, it was partially for lack of trying, but, you know, people come in and usually they know what they want and nobody ever asked for it. I can't even remember when I first played it.
All right, Danner?
Man.
Yeah, I was kicking and screaming this generation the whole way in.
I'm trying to even. I don't even remember why I bought a PlayStation in the first place. Why I eventually came to buy a PS3. I think it was
Is this
you.
a problem that we can't answer this question?
For you guys.
Retail ruined me.
It did. GameStop just killed me. Man.
Boy, yeah, for some PlayStation fanboys, you're really landing on thick here, guys.
I think ultimately the games got me there for the PlayStation. Eventually.
Someone's playing with something.
Sorry.
It wasn't me this time. Ha!
For once, it's not Joe.
One with all the toys on his desk.
All right. Shanzi,
Yes.
you were very late, and you actually ended up selling your PlayStation 3 back.
Yeah. Well, after it broke, yes.
I thought you just got tired of using it as a Netflix player.
No, well, that kind of bummed me out. But then I tried to play something, and then I think I've said it on the podcast before. Thank you for listening, by the way. So it wouldn't. Sometimes it would play the game. Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes the disc tray would open whenever it felt like it. Sometimes when I didn't even push the button.
What version did you have? It doesn't even have a tray.
What?
PS3
Yeah,
doesn't
Or
have
not,
a tray.
not the tray. Sometimes it would just eject the disc. Rather, sometimes
okay.
it wouldn't let me push the disc in,
Okay.
which was fun.
I think I'm the only one that's ever had a good experience with a Sony system.
Well, what
I've
is
had
it?
nothing but positive experience with the PS3 since I got it.
Oh.
He just didn't want to get it.
The PS3 is the only. Actually, I should say that the PS3 is the only system I've had no issues with that's been a Sony system. Oh God, I'm buying a launch PS4. What's wrong with me?
I don't know. So I'm telling you,
I have way more faith in Sony than I've ever had before for releasing a good system. I
That's
actually,
not really
for the first time,
saying
stand
much.
behind them.
Well, it's their message, but we can talk about that in a little bit here. For me, I jumped on, I was a PlayStation fanboy since I switched to the PlayStation. I loved the PlayStation 2. For me, when it came down to the last generation, which, 8 years ago, I did not have a 360 at launch. I didn't care for the 360. I was not an Xbox fan at all. But in 2006, I had the job that I have now, and I had no expenses, no nothing, and I was trying to find stuff to play. And one of the things I wanted an HD TV. So I did some research, and I went out and bought one, and Danner now has that HD TV. Which I hope that's not broken, is it?
No, that's not broken. That works fine.
Okay. So I went out and bought that TV, and I was really happy with it. I got it home. I bought component cables for my PlayStation 2 just because I knew that would make the picture look a little better. Hooked it up, got it all ready to go, and it looked like shit.
Hot straight trash.
Yeah, it was awful. I couldn't. And at that moment, I was like, okay, that's it. I have to get a next gen. I have to get an HD console. So, the PlayStation launched, and I couldn't, afford, $500-600 for a system. But on Black Friday that year, Circuit City had this crazy deal going for the 360. It was like buy one game, get one on the games, and then the 20 gig system was marked down to like $300 or something like that.
20 gig.
I
Yeah,
know.
I know,
just
right?
keep thinking about that, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get 20 gig. I'll never be able to fill that up." Oh,
That's like 2 games.
yeah. Well, I mean that was before you could
Install stuff.
install the game to the disc, so it wasn't that much. But if you wanted to put any kind of thing on there, it's like, oh, you want to put all the DLC for that game on? There's 10 gigs.
So, anyways, I jumped to the 360 because I wanted to play HD games, and I got Gears of War, and because that was like the 360 game that year, and played the hell out of that, and I got NHL 2006 or whatever it was, 2007. Played the hell out of that with my friend Jason, and it wasn't until again, for some reason, I was not aware of the Red Ring of Death, or I think I was aware of it, and so I actually bought a warranty from Circuit City when I got my system, and I was
The warranty that you eventually didn't need for Red Ring.
well. Luckily I was able to get some of my money back because I was really pissed. The fall of 2007, my system red ringed, and I took it up to Circuit City because I still had the 2-year thing on it, and they were like, "I'm sorry, you need to send this into They're like, "You need to send this into Microsoft." I'm like, "But I have this from you. You should replace it." and they're like, well, we're not going to honor it anymore. And then I had to fight with them to get my money back. So I was able to get, a good chunk of it back for that warranty thing.
Shocking that such a good, company would do that. Oh wait, they're not around anymore.
Right. So while it was out it went out to get repaired, it came back, and then the system they ended up sending me ended up damaging like several games that I put into it. Like the tray would scratch rings into the
circle
disc. Yeah.
This.
Yep. So I sent that back to them, and by this time, my system had been unusable for about 2 months, and Sony, I about had it, and it was about that time that Sony announced that they were going to drop the price to $399 for a 40 gig drive, and I was like, okay, that's it, I'm sold. So I went and made the jump to the PlayStation 3. And I kind of went on the notion that if I'm going to play a single player game, I'm going to play it on the PlayStation 3, and if I'm going to play a multiplayer game, I'm going to play it on live, because as we said on the last episode, live was excellent. It was way ahead of the PlayStation Network. But one of the first games I got for the PlayStation 3 was Uncharted, and I was just it was over from there. Like the games on the 360, they couldn't do it for me anymore. And then after that, obviously it went to Infamous, and then like the big tentpole games like Infamous, Uncharted 2, stuff like that. So, and eventually I evangelized it enough supposedly to get Danner to actually purchase one.
Yep.
See,
So
I still have the same problem with the PS3 that I always had. I can't stand getting a new game, bringing it home, and then waiting for 20-30 minutes as it installs.
I've never
If you're
waited
lucky.
I've never
Not
waited
gonna
that
be an
long.
issue on Friday.
I've never waited
Yeah.
that long. Ever. But then
I
again,
have waited up to 2 hours for the game to download
Oh yeah,
and install.
I've done over the 2 hour or over an hour mark easy.
I've
and
never
I didn't play that many games on it, so
I've never done that. But then again, I don't have the stock drive in it. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But it's never taken me that long to like an install at most. I think the longest install was Gran Turismo. But that was because Gran Turismo installed almost the entire game.
I looked at that and I mean, why did it have to install when it doesn't install on the Xbox? I put it in and I play it.
It's
Like I wasn't sure what PlayStation was doing different.
it's
And then the gameplay wasn't that different. It didn't reduce load times that much at all.
the reason they do it is because the way the memory is used on both systems. Obviously the 360 has a unified pool of memory, and the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 3 does not. There's 250 gigs of system memory, and then there's 256 gigs for the graphics card. And I think what some developers were doing, most notably, oh man, forgive me, the guys behind Fallout and Oblivion.
Bethesda.
Yeah. Most notably Bethesda, they were using the drive very heavily to cache as like extra RAM. Because they could pull things faster from the hard drive than they could from the system. But then again, that's a third party developer, because first party titles, Infamous, Uncharted, those games, they don't have installs. Or if they do, they're almost non-existent. And once those games start, they're good to go. Like, because they've got they load things in during the cutscenes. They're really good at streaming off the disc. That's kind of one of the things that Rockstar probably adopted for Grand Theft Auto 5, was the ability to stream things off of the disc and the hard drive simultaneously. And that's just that was a way that certain developers overcame the limitations of the hardware, which is not a thing. Not only are there background installs on the PS4, but there's not the hardware. The architecture is far more flexible than it was the last time around. Even still, the minute Microsoft gave you the ability to install games to the hard drive, I installed everything. I don't put a game in my 360 and play it without installing it first.
Depends on the game.
I can't. I don't like listening to that damn thing. It's too loud. I hate it. As soon as you install it, it makes no noise, and it's much better.
Well, it makes
Mine
less
did.
noise. Makes less noise.
Well, I have a
Doesn't make
Slim,
no
so it
noise.
makes zero
So
noise.
do I.
Yeah, mine still reads from the disc
I can't.
sometimes,
It's-
especially on
it-
LA Noir, but that's because it's
LA Noir.
a mess.
I
on
have.
360.
I even tell Allie, I have to remind her. I said, if you play a game on the 360, you need to install it, because otherwise you're going to kill that system eventually. So it's just extra heat that the system doesn't know what to do with.
See, the PS3 kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because the last game I ever played on it, completely was Skyrim, and holy Gavalt, was that a fucking horror show.
Oh, I bet. I've heard
That
horror
was-
stories about the
And
Bethesda games.
I finished it before those patches came out to fix it.
Ugh. That must have been a interesting game.
The last couple
Experience.
hours got pretty shitty, let me tell you.
So,
For anyone who's not aware, what would happen is the game would continuously try to load every tiny little thing you've touched.
all right.
So
So
the entire world.
since does anyone else have anything they want to say about the PlayStation 2? 3, sorry, PlayStation 3.
Uncharted 2. Woo!
Yes, Uncharted 2. All right. Now, if we want to, we can touch on the PlayStation 4 ever so slightly before, we talk about it a little more in depth next week.
Nah, touch it.
What was it? Last Thursday, I ran out to Best Buy, as I am wont to do from
Nerd.
time to time. And lo and behold, they had the PlayStation 4 controllers on sale
Nerd.
in the Fine. I am a nerd. I don't deny that.
Nerd.
You couldn't deny it if you wanted to.
But I ran out there and they had the controllers out there, and I was kind of like, I really want to get one because I want to try one. I really want to, because I like doing this show and I like to be able to talk to you guys about stuff that, maybe
That's completely unnecessary.
it's not completely unnecessary because
Buying a
they-
PlayStation 4, playing a PlayStation 3.
Anyways, I ran out there and I couldn't really bring myself to buy it. But I found myself out on Miller Road, which is where Best Buy is again. I found myself out there the next night, and I quickly ran a YouTube video, and I was like, if the PlayStation 4 controller works with Arkham Origins, I will pick it up. And sure enough, there was a video on YouTube where a guy, if you hook a PlayStation 4 controller to a PS3 using the USB cable, it works. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up. So I've been playing with it for just under a week now. Joe has a different opinion than me, I think. I really like it.
Joe has a different opinion from everything
Well,
that
it's-
everybody has.
It's true.
His opposite opinion.
I really like it. I find it to be, it's slightly heavier than the DualShock 3, but it's not as heavy as an Xbox 360 controller. The Surface buttons are a little closer together, and as you've probably read online or not, the buttons are no longer analog like the face buttons. They're actually digital. They're not quite as clicky as the PlayStation Vita, like I was hoping for.
How sensitive are they?
They're digital. They're I don't know. They register.
But I mean, like, say if you have your thumb resting on top of what the X button, is it going to register as it a hit?
No, there is definitely a click.
Okay.
There isn't like there isn't like the snappy click, kind of like with the Vita, but there's definitely when you've pressed the button. And the face buttons are a little closer together, so you don't have to like move your fingers as far to get them. The analog sticks are slightly further apart, and they feel really good. I told Danner, I think it was Tuesday when I was at work. I had my first instance where the redesigned analog stick actually kind of saved my butt. In Arkham Origins, I was in the middle of combat, and I had moved my finger in such a way that if I had been using a traditional PlayStation 3 controller, my thumb would have slipped right off the stick, and I probably would have died. but I was able to, just hook my thumb in just enough into the groove and keep my finger on the stick, so I didn't lose complete control. The triggers are nice. I can't really say how they might compare to the 360 controller. Although, Joe, you said you thought they were still placed too high.
Well, I absolutely love the controller, comparing it to the DualShock that they should have changed 10 years ago. The joysticks being further apart, the joysticks being set lower into the controller, they don't stick out as far. So that means that the range of motion is reduced, so you don't have to move your thumb as far over to get to the edge of the motion. Between those two things, the controller's really solid. It feels like a good, solid thing in your hands. I don't know how do you describe that? I don't know.
That's
It doesn't
about as
feel
good
like
as
a
you're gonna
cheap
get.
piece of plastic.
No,
it doesn't feel like a rock. It's just solid.
It is a very solid controller.
It's so light too.
One of the things that really kind of surprises me, and I don't know why I was expecting this to be any different. The PlayStation controllers, when they come out of the packaging, they all feel cheap. Like when they're brand new, just out of the packaging. I don't know if it's like because they don't have like any kind of like oils, like kind of like in on the surface or anything like that, but they just all feel cheap. Like this controller now, after using it for about a week, does not feel the same way it did when I pulled it out of the packaging.
Is it because they're more like a smooth plastic, whereas like the back of a 360 controller is kind of, it's not quite so smooth. There's almost like a slight texture to it.
This has texture on it. They actually did texture the grip.
But I'm saying, is that why it doesn't feel cheap?
No, it just, like Joe said, it just feels a lot more solid. I think it's because it's a little heavier.
It's a little heavier.
But it's not too heavy to where you don't want to, use it all the time, but it's not too light where you feel like you're playing with a cheap toy. The triggers don't bother me. I think they're really nice, but I haven't been able to play a shooter. Unfortunately, while the controller did work with Arkham Origins, it did not work with Grand Theft Auto. So you can kind of hear how they click now. I don't really think a PS3 controller
that's
clicks
pretty
like this.
That's pretty exciting radio here. Us hearing you click buttons.
Okay. The trackpad obviously doesn't work on the PS3 because it doesn't do anything, but the share button and the option button, they just function like the select and the start button. The other button that didn't work though, which is really interesting, was the PlayStation button. So even though I could go into and start a game, I couldn't exit to the dashboard. I had to have my PlayStation 3 controller there as player 2.
Annoying. Just
to get out of the game, but
for God's sakes, he's using it on a PS3. Relax.
Yeah.
It's not fully functional.
The controller also does work on PC and Mac, if you want to use it to play video games.
Yeah, that's one thing I've heard, is that it works with computers straight out of the box. You don't have to download drivers.
Well, so did the DualShock 3 controller also does as well.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Really? Bluetooth?
Yep. Bluetooth. Oh, it'll probably work better if you hook it up with a USB cable.
Okay. That's cool.
But the light bar is actually, when I hook the little light thing does glow. It turns yellow when I plug it into the my PS3. That's gonna be interesting to see how that works, because I know a lot of developers are saying like that they're gonna use the light bar to kind of immerse you into the game. But the weird thing is, when you're holding the controller, you can't see the light. Like,
I was gonna say, isn't the light on the front of it?
It is, but it kind of faces down. So I wonder if it's like powerful enough. I haven't used it in the dark, so I'm wondering if it's enough
gonna
to like
illuminate your crotch as you're playing.
No, it's like,
oh my god,
no,
my
it's not.
dick's red. That means danger.
No, it's not quite like, it doesn't aim straight down. It
depends on how you're sitting holding your controller, though.
But I think that it's it's going to be kind of neat if anyone has is interested in one, or you're getting a PS4. It does need a micro USB. The last one, the PS3, used a mini USB cable. So they do need you do need new USB cables to charge them. If you have like an Android phone or
all cell phones use micro USB.
Yeah,
now,
although that's what I was going to say.
Probably
tell that to my iPhone.
That's what I was going to say. If you have like a Nook or a Kindle or an Android phone or anything like that, you've probably already got micro USB cables lying around. However, if you don't, Monoprice is a great place to get them. I actually just bought 4 15-foot micro USB cables for like $15. That includes shipping.
Are you planning on having 4 controllers?
Well, I have 3. I have cats. So I like-
that you're buying spares so when they chew through the cords.
exactly.
I was gonna say because my PlayStation, I had 2 controllers for it. I can't remember ever using the second controller.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I could never justify buying a nice second controller. You get the shitty Mad Cats or GameStop ones. That's
I
what you
can't.
get.
I can't buy their stuff, man. I'd rather spend the money on an actual licensed controller.
I wouldn't. That's just one more edge for me against whoever I'm playing against.
So, the other little thing, and Danner can chime in here too. Thank you, Amazon. We have received some of our PlayStation 4 games.
Woo! More will be here tomorrow.
If anyone's interested, you've got your standard manual and stuff on the inside. Battlefield comes with a voucher for some downloadable content. The disc,
God, they
the disc.
smell so good.
the disc looks like a Blu-ray disc. It's your typical
Yep.
thing, except it says PS4 down at the bottom instead of PS3, and it's in blue instead of black.
Ooh,
I know, right? This is the stuff people want to know about.
colors of font of text and font.
Right, and you're just like the 360 before it, or not before it, but the 360 had green cases. Now we've got blue cases.
And they
It's a
so
nice.
now they match the Vita cases.
It's a nice blue though.
It is.
Is it like a
But is it
Blu-ray
going to be
blue?
like? Is
Yes.
it going to be like every single Sony thing where they start with a case that looks one way and then 2 years in they completely abandon the case design?
Well, they didn't really abandon the case design for the PS4.
They abandoned the logo.
Yes, but they didn't change the color. So, interesting things of note. Mainly this time around, Battlefield 4, 40 gigabyte install minimum.
Call of
Um,
Duty Ghost,
Yeah, wait for it because
49 gigabyte minimum.
Yeah. I can't comment on Call of Duty because I didn't really play too much of the last Call of Duty game on 360 at least. But Battlefield, with its multiplayer updates and its expansion packs, I think my Battlefield 3 now has like 20 something gigs added on top of the game. So wait for that to eat up your space.
Yeah, that'd be like another 40 gigabytes.
Oh, it's probably going to be at least that.
But that's if we decide to buy DLC for this game.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
you cannot and then never play against people online again,
It's true. It's very true.
especially when it's all people running their own servers.
Well, actually, I think they're actually going to do their own servers now too.
Well, no,
Yep,
there
they
was they had like but they'll have like 3 and they'll be packed. You'll never get into them.
I think it's going to be more than that.
No, they made more independent servers this time around to compete against
Well,
Call of Duty's independent.
If they
servers.
made 5, that was more. So like,
So yeah, I mean, obviously we'll have more to say about this stuff on next week's episode. But the PS4 is here, guys.
well, it's not.
it'll be here when they
here.
listen to this probably.
That's true.
It's technically in transit right now.
Tomorrow night on the eve, well, you guys are probably listening to this, or maybe you're not. My wife and I are going to be waiting in line at Best Buy to pick up ours, to pick up the first of ours. And
Well,
then,
la di da.
And then I'm going to, come home, get that set up. I don't know when I'm going to sleep this weekend because I have the entire weekend off.
Oh God.
I'm going to try and live stream some stuff, assuming the PlayStation Network works, because you can now stream to Twitch. So I'll be streaming some of that. And I might be able to get Google Hangouts working so I can actually show you guys some stuff if you want to see it. But Shanzi, do you got to go?
I got a couple minutes.
Okay. Who said they had to go?
I gotta go.
Joe's got to go. Okay.
Enjoy your PS4 tomorrow evening.
I will try to.
I wonder how I teach in the inner city. None of my students are going to have PS4s.
Well, are you going to
So-
come over to my house on Friday?
Probably not because we're going to Ohio.
Fuck you and Andy. Both of you aren't coming over.
Joe,
I
Tanner,
know.
Tanner, you should just pack your system up and come over here.
Nope.
Okay.
According to Amazon, it's not showing up till 8 p.m. at night, which I don't believe at all, but
No, it's just by 8 p.m.
I know.
So.
All right. Have a good night,
Who's-
gentlemen.
Who's
Thank you, listeners.
delivering it?
It's UPS.
Bye, Joe.
Bye.
It's the Ups truck.
Bye, Joe. If it wasn't UPS, I'd be pissed.
Bye, Joe!
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap this up. Unless you guys want to do a little listener feedback from the last episode.
Let's do some listener feedback.
Sure, since I wasn't
Alright.
here last episode. Well, I mean, I was.
You were here.
All right, so Ryan Hannity
You
says,
and your tears.
Since it wasn't on the podcast, what would you all say is the best game of this generation? He says his top 5 were Portal 2, Mass Effect 2, Bioshock, Assassin's Creed 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So this is one of the things we didn't. I actually asked if we were going to pick a best game of the generation. But you said we did one for each console. Do we want to try and pick a game of the generation? Like right here, right now?
Uncharted 2.
Really?
No.
Sean, your opinion doesn't count.
It does count. My
No.
opinion is your opinion, remember? You're the one voicing me.
I was gonna say, what are you gonna pick Saints Row 4?
No, don't be stupid. It's clearly
State of
State of Decay.
All right. Let's come back to this one.
Well, yeah, like,
This-
but like, it's odd his choice of Mass Effect 2 because that's probably one of the weaker of the games. I would say, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I'm questioning the Modern Warfare 2, but because I think I still
I
think
thought Call of Duty 4 is still the best.
yes, I will agree with that.
Yeah.
Super Film Fans 98 says, I don't know how many total hours I spent with Skyrim, but it's close to Mike's with Borderlands. I can't play that game without putting at least 4 hours minimum. It sucks me in. And then Ryan Hannity chimes in with, well, you can add me to that list. Missed a date because I was absorbed in the world of Skyrim. Before you ask, it was worth it.
Oh God.
Dragono finishes it up with, I can count on 2 hands the number of relationships I know were ruined because of Skyrim. Wow. How many days? Skyrim isn't even that old.
Okay, I played Skyrim. Okay, did either of you guys play Skyrim?
I did not.
Nope.
But blowjobs are better. Moving on.
But wait, I'm more concerned about this. The guy went through 10
No,
relationships?
He said that he knew of 10 relationships. I don't think he said that he had 10 relationships.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm
See,
sorry.
I'm not even reading it, and I'm doing a better job than you.
Yeah,
Jesus, get
okay.
with it.
All right. Rachel Manning. Looks like we actually have a female follower. Let's do our best not to offend her.
I'm sorry about the
Sean's-
blowjobs comment 4
I was gonna
seconds
say,
ago.
Creepy Sean will already take care of that. So
I'm
Best
charmed.
the best thing that happened this generation was indie gaming because it gave us the best game of the generation, Journey. Simple but brilliant. Super Film Fan jumps in and says, I cannot agree more. Well, I wouldn't call it the best game of the generation, but it was amazing. And then King of Kongs wraps it up with, best of the generation is too far for me. It's great, don't get me wrong, but best of this generation, there's much more out there that beats it.
I agree with him.
Journey's
developing
really
as a-
good.
Yeah,
oh my
sure
God,
is.
you and
I'm
Joe
sure
should
it
just
is.
marry Journey. Love Journey. It's so great. Such a great gaming experience. I love it so much. Oh.
That's the sound of them blowing Journey. Again, sorry to all our one.
Okay,
now none female listeners.
Okay, here's the thing. If I could put Gone Home if I could have put Gone Home in this list, which I did, and you got irritated about, and I understand why.
Because it's not a console game.
Right. But if I could have put Gone Home in there, like if we're just looking at the last 8 years of gaming, I would probably put Gone Home over Journey. Like just as a generation thing. But anyways.
I don't disagree the fact that Journey is a nifty little game. I don't know. I guess I didn't see what you guys saw in it.
Did you play with a bunch of kids running around you?
Nope.
Oh. Okay.
It did take me 2 sittings to get through it though.
Oh, see, I played through it in one sitting. Actually, I played through it twice in one. Like I've played through the game twice, both times in one sitting each. And I think that's the game. I think that's one of those things where the game needs to be taken like as a whole and not broken.
Yeah.
I understand, and I understand that may not be possible, but I think that's part of it because the immersion isn't broken. You're actually like sucked in, and some part of you is invested. It's kind of like when I say that I can't go. By the way, bye, Shanzi.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
It's kind of like when I watch, or when we were playing The Walking Dead, and I said that I put a day between episode 4 and episode 5.
Yeah.
I lost my momentum. I have a feeling it would be kind of the same thing, and maybe not, but all right. The Walking Dread. This is the comment I brought up before we started recording. Not surprising, Xbox won this generation. I agree, PS3 had some better games, but as an overall experience, Xbox was superior. The Red Ring of Death was an issue, but the PS3 online hacking was much, much worse. Walking Dread, I have to disagree with you about the hacking issue. While it did bring down the PlayStation Network, and many people had their identities stolen, and I don't know, we don't even know if identities were stolen. Because I don't count I don't really count an identity as being stolen unless it's actually being used. But information was stolen. Unlike the Red Ring of Death, where my system was out of commission for 2 months, and I could not play any games because the system wasn't in the house. The PlayStation Network going down did not prevent me from playing PlayStation games, and oddly enough, I was actually still able to access Netflix, which you supposedly weren't supposed to be able to do. So I don't really think the hacking thing was as bad as the Red Ring of Death, because it didn't interrupt my gaming at all. Do you have an opinion, Danner? Do you think one was worse than the other?
I still think the Red Ring was worse, and I mean, I had far more issues with the Red Wing. Oh my god! With the Red Ring of Death than I had with the network being down for PlayStation. I just didn't see it. I don't know. I thought it was.
It didn't interrupt you as a gamer.
No, it didn't. And the fact that Sony really, I felt, made up for the whole thing by offering the free games, and at the end of that, I thought was really cool of them. I mean, Microsoft, they were replacing the systems for free, but like you said, you were without a system for a long period of time. So I don't think the two, to me, I don't feel the events are comparable. Because one's a security issue and the other was a hardware issue.
Right. So software versus hardware.
Don't get me wrong, there were blemishes to both the companies, so there's, I mean, some similarities to it. But I don't know. For some reason, mostly I think because of the fact that we were playing our online games on the 360, we were playing our individual, like, single-player games on the PS3, that it was less effective towards us because we weren't really utilizing the PS3 strictly for online play.
Right. No, I can agree with that one. All right. Connor Murphy says, I voted for BioShock for best FPS because it's the only thing close to FPS that I have actually played, and I'd rather that win than anything Call of Duty.
I agree.
Walking Dread chimes in with, why do people hate COD so much? I get jackasses love it. Doesn't make the game a bad game. And then Ryan Handy says, I blame the COD online community. It's full of 12-year-old racist pricks.
Have
yes.
you guys played have you played with the Left 4 Dead community? Holy shit, those guys are so much worse.
This is really fun. Like the online stuff, like going from I am honestly worried about the online community for the PlayStation 4.
You have any idea how excited I am about the online community for PlayStation 4?
Well,
You know
okay.
why? Have I told you my theory of why I'm excited about it?
Well, can you hold it for just 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing with the PS with the 360 is everyone came it was one, it was cheaper, and two, it came with a headset. Everyone had a headset, so everyone had a voice online. And not only that, it was cheaper, so more parents thought that, being the cheaper system, it was just better to buy that for their kids. So I understand why there's a lot of 12-year-old racist pricks. I get that. It's also one of the reasons why, myself and my friends, I know Danner did it too, we started utilizing the Xbox Live Party Chat. And it's kind of Modern Warfare 2 is actually where we started seeing the chinks in Xbox Live and stuff like that, when Microsoft gave control over certain Xbox Live functions to developers and wouldn't let us chat and wouldn't let us do a party chat in multiplayer for Modern Warfare 2, which they reversed for Modern Warfare 3 because we didn't like listening to those people. So we ended up muting a whole bunch of people on the 360. As far as online with the PS3 goes, when I've been online on the PS3 and I've had my headset on, I've had a pleasant experience on the PS3. I've had people like apologize to me or just offer like tips, not yelling at me for making a mistake and questioning my sexuality, all in the same sentence. And I think that's one of the reasons for that is because, one, the PS3 was so expensive to begin with, so really only adults could afford it. And because there wasn't a headset in the box, again, you had to have a little bit of extra income to buy a headset so you could have a voice. So I think there was a certain level of maturity that came along with owning a PlayStation and being on the PlayStation Network. And I'm a little worried that might not carry over to the PlayStation 4, because now the PlayStation 4 is in the same position that the Xbox was in, or the 360 was in, where it's cheaper and it comes with a headset. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to be rapidly hitting that mute button really quick.
I'm less concerned because of the fact that they're somewhat doing away with
Anonymity.
the gamer tags and the anonymity of everything, because your real name is going to be put forward, which, in my opinion, you don't have that persona to hide behind.
Okay, I'm excited for that feature. I really am. Except I've been reading a lot about it, and it works. So I can still friend you, okay? And I can request to see you can have the system set up for your real name, but I won't be able to see it unless I request from you to be able to see it. Like, you have to allow me to see what your real name is. Which is that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Because I would totally put my real name out there, because I'm generally not a dick online.
Sure.
Other than the fact that I mute a lot of people because I don't like listening to music in the background.
Except for when you're dick-belligerent and drinking.
Dick-belligerent, yes.
Dick-belligerent.
I'm debating if I want to drink on Friday night or not.
You want to sully your first evening with it?
Why not?
Shouldn't it be pure and sensual and just, how a first time should be?
What is this, high school?
Yes.
Should I get scented candles out? Put them up all around the house? Okay. All right.
Some Barry White.
All right, last ones. Dragano says, I could listen to an entire episode of you all bashing the Wii. It's hilarious. Great podcast, guys. Surprised by many of the winners, as were we, as you probably heard.
I wasn't. That's because I tabulated the results.
King of Kongs also chimes in with top 100 Altered Geek and Generation Awards. Man, I can't keep up with you guys. And then Steve says we aim to please, and then King of Kong lets us know that we've succeeded. So Danner, now that we've lost 2 of the 4 hosts here, do we want to pick a game of the generation, just you and I?
And I have issues with me and you just picking the game and just making a choice because of the fact that I'm very much under the impression that games, something that's going to be important to you isn't going to be as important to me. It's all about the gaming experience when it comes down to it. Because if I go purely off of what was my favorite game, what did I have the most fun with, and what do I feel was my best experience.
We're not giving it to Borderlands.
I wasn't going to say Borderlands. I was going to say, I would say Fallout 3 was my favorite game. My personal favorite game of this entire generation was Fallout 3. Because I had more fun and I put more time and just enjoyed all the experiences I had with that game more than anything else this entire generation.
All right, well, why don't we make that the question then?
Let's do that.
All right, so you guys want us to pick a game of the generation, the game of this past console generation, and we want to do that, but Danner and I don't feel like we can represent an adequate slice of people's opinions. So in the comments section, why not let us know what you think the best game of the generation is? And we'll take a look at what you guys submit, and maybe we'll pick one, or maybe we'll just pick one of our own. So you guys have a week to get that done. If you want to do that, you can get in touch with us. You can comment on our parent site at geekcastradio.com, or you can send emails to us at feedback@geekcastradio.com. If you listen to us on iTunes, please head on over there and leave us a review. 5 stars, please, but 1 star only if you have to. So you can find myself, Michael Powers, on Twitter, X. Oh wow, I need to update this. You can find myself on Twitter and the PlayStation Network at BoothNinja81. Danner, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Art Danner, or on the PlayStation Network at X51 the Machine Man.
You guys can find Shawnzy on Twitter at Shawnzy Brown. You can also find him on Xbox Live at Weapon87. Danner, where can they find Joe?
They can find Joe at Joe Reed Geek on Twitter. You can also find him on Xbox Live or on the PlayStation Network is Vilefire with, well, it's Wildfire with 2 lowercase v's making the W.
The Wildfire.
The Wildfire.
All right. Until next week, you are not ready.
Pixels in the animation has now left the Mushroom Kingdom, paisans, to enter the realm of Hyrule in episodes 16 through 20 of PETA. Join TV's Mr. Neil and TFG1 Mike as they are going through the classic, and I'm actually have my fingers in the air and making air quotes when we say classic, Legend of Zelda the Animated Series. This time around, a special guest joins the guys for the Zelda reviews. It's the famed Ender from Radio Free Cybertron. And the Pullback. So tune in and help us find the pixels in the animation, which you can find on iTunes and www.geekcastradio.com. Excuse us, listeners.
Hello and welcome to Off the Cuff, episode 37. As always, I am your host, Michael Powers. This week, as always, I am joined by Arthur Danner.
Hi.
And that's it.
Hi.
No one else is here.
Hi.
Oh, wait, I think Danner's going to stretch his acting chops and fill in for Shawnzy and Joe this week.
I'm going to be honest. I just came from the gym. I don't have the energy for that.
I feel like part of that is a lie.
It is not. It is absolutely not.
You were at the gym?
Yeah.
Oh. More power to you, sir.
Yeah. I did about 30 minutes on the elliptical. I waited to lift weights for 20 minutes, and then I did the exercise bike for about 20 minutes.
And everyone's tuned out of this already 90-minute podcast.
Hey, I gotta do something from all the sitting I did all weekend playing PlayStation 4. So.
All right, so if you're still here after listening to episode 36, thank you. as I said in the intro for that episode, I was lazy because I really wanted to play with my PlayStation 4, and I couldn't make myself find the time to edit episode 36. So 36 and 37 have been smashed together into a giant-sized episode. Thank you for still listening. On this episode, Danner and I will be discussing briefly, maybe, the same way we just did for the PlayStation. We'll be discussing the launches of the Xbox and the Xbox 360 leading into the Xbox One. And depending on how fast that goes, maybe we'll be discussing a little bit of our experience with the PlayStation 4. So, with that in mind, let's get started. The original Xbox was released on November 15th in 2001. It was part of the 6th generation of gaming consoles. It obviously competed directly against the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo's GameCube. Kind of trying to remember how we did it last in the last episode, given that it was a week ago and so much has happened. But I believe we started out by going around saying what was our first experience, or like the first time, like what was your first thought about the Xbox when you first heard about it? And being that, Danner, you're the only one here, I'll go ahead and start with you. Where were you the first time you heard about the Xbox? Do you remember?
I remember it because I was working at the movie theater, and if I recall correctly, the Xbox and the GameCube launched on the exact same day. I
think it was either the same day.
I'm fairly positive because there was a midnight launch. I remember working at the movie theater, and the GameStop that's located directly in front of the movie theater entrance, I should say, let me rephrase it, the software, etc., that was located in the mall, directly across from where the entrance of the theater was doing a midnight launch of the GameCube, which I was very much aware of, and the Xbox, which I was like, nah. Good luck, Microsoft, trying to get into the gaming market.
It looks like there were three days in between them. November 15th and November 18th.
Yeah.
So
then
really close.
If there was, maybe they were doing the Xbox launch, and I was actually over there inquiring more so about the GameCube launch at the time.
You were that guy.
I was that guy. So I was intrigued, but I was uncertain of it. But I think that was how a lot of people were treating it. They're like, because typically it's been a Japanese, Asia has been producing these systems. Oh, here come the Americans trying to get into the video game market. What are they possibly going to do? That was kind of my mentality as being a Nintendo fanboy. Well, I shouldn't say, and I've made this distinction many times. Yes, I was Nintendo. Yes, I was Sony. I'm a game fan. I'm not a company fan. I'm not a company guy. I'm a game fan. I go where I get the most out of the games. And to me, I just didn't know much about the Xbox, didn't know a whole lot. Eventually that generation, I bought a PS2, and then I was gifted for one of my birthdays, I got a GameCube, and then when I started working at GameStop, that was one of the first things I did was buy an original Xbox. After it had been out for a few years.
I myself have never owned an Xbox. The Christmas that they all came out, I have three cousins. Two of the cousins and myself, we all asked for GameCubes for Christmas. My other cousin asked for an Xbox, and we all thought he was the craziest person on the face of the planet, because why would you want, kind of what you were saying, why would you want something that wasn't proven,
For some reason, to me, like, I had the same mentality about the Xbox as I had about the TurboGrafx 16 or the Neo Geo.
I don't think I've ever experienced those systems. Like, I'm aware of them. I know that they exist. I don't think I've ever actually handled one of them.
To me, they were the rich kid systems.
Well, regardless of that, for me, video games is always Nintendo, Sega.
Yeah.
And then, then PlayStation was the upstart. So it became Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation. But then again, as we said, that's all, Eastern, developers and hardware manufacturing and stuff like that. So that kind of worked for me. Even when like Sony first, we talked about this on the last episode or, earlier in this episode, that when Sony first showed up, it was kind of like, what's going, who are these people? Right.
Yeah.
It was kind of that same thing, but there was definitely this weird vibe especially because it was Microsoft getting into it. Who's Microsoft? They make computers and really crappy operating systems. Who are they to jump in and dictate games? I remember the first time I ever heard about the Xbox was in an Electronic Gaming Monthly at like an E3, because I remember Microsoft hired these guys in like suits to carry around metal briefcases that had like Project X written on them. It was just like a marketing ploy. Like, they hadn't even shown off the Xbox yet. It like they were those silver like bomb code cases you see in movies.
Yeah.
And they had like an X embossed on them, and in the middle they had a green dot. And they were like wearing like Men in Black outfits, and they had the suit, the case like handcuffed to their wrist, as like a marketing thing. And then I remember the next time they saw it, and to a certain extent, these objects were kind of placed in the first Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox, which was one of the concept designs for the Xbox was actually an X. Do you remember that?
I do.
And those are actually used as keys in Ninja Gaiden. And I was, a PlayStation. I was big into the PlayStation 2. I was excited for the GameCube because I was a Nintendo fan, still. And it was weird that this Microsoft was jumping in here, and I didn't know what to expect. They didn't have anything that was like jumping out at me. Which brings us to the next part of any launch, which is the games, right?
Yeah.
You've got Dead or Alive 3. You've got Amped Freestyle Snowboarding. You've got Fusion Frenzy. You've got Project Gotham Racing and Jet Set Radio Future. And there's another one. Oh, geez. What's that game I can't think of? Help me out here. There's been like 6 of them.
Something Combat Evolved.
Something to do with like angels, like rings and space, and there's a flood. I don't know. But so, what was your first experience with like the Xbox? So like, we know that you went to the store on the launch, and you were that guy asking about a completely different system. When's the first time you were actually able to sit down, get that massive controller in your hands, and play a game?
I never had the massive controller in my hands.
Never?
I think the first time I played it was after the S-Type came out, and I played Halo multiplayer. And I want to say, to this day, I've never played the single player campaign in the first Halo game. I've only played multiplayer in that game.
So you didn't know anyone in like school or anything like that picked up an Xbox?
I was in college at that point in time, and nobody I knew was playing Xbox.
Huh. Oh, I don't know. For some reason, that surprises me.
College was primarily PlayStation 2s. I didn't really know anybody that had Xbox. And in the dorms, there was a lot of original NESs. A staggering amount of original NESs.
What I'm looking for, and I don't seem to be able to find, is a price.
I don't remember them being cheap.
Wasn't it like $299?
I thought they were more expensive than that, but they could have been.
Wow, thanks Wikipedia, dropping the ball on the frickin' price.
Way to go.
Jeez, oh Pete's. Okay, so my first time was at Christmas that I was telling you about, where my cousins and we all got GameCubes, and then my one cousin actually got the Xbox. And I remember sitting down, and he got, I believe he got Dead or Alive, Amped, and Halo. Now the one I remember playing the most is Halo, and I remember being thrown off by the controls, especially getting in a Warthog for the first time.
Getting in a Warthog for the first time always sucks.
But now that's like the default control scheme for like cars and first-person shooters.
Oh yeah.
But it's just it was really interesting at the time. The only other time I had any experience with an Xbox was when I actually moved out to Grand Rapids. The guys that I moved in with when I moved out there, one of them had an Xbox and they had hacked it to play SNES, NES, Genesis, all those games. So from time to time I would load up his Xbox and, go through the menus and start playing some older games. But eventually I had one of my friends over and we actually played through all of Halo cooperatively. And that was right about the time that Halo 2 was coming out. That's pretty much my only experiences were like Halo and Halo 2 as far as the Xbox is concerned, because I still wasn't, even later in its life, like towards the end of it, I didn't care for it. I didn't, like, they still were not showing me anything that was like wowing me, because there were even moments like I am not ashamed to say that I think Metroid Prime is a better first-person shooter, or looks better than Halo does.
Oh, by far it looks better.
There's so many more fine details in Metroid Prime that actually make that world come to life that is absent in a Halo game. Not to mention there's a story in the Metroid series, and I can't find the story in a Halo game to save my life.
There's a story, I just don't think it's that solid.
Oh no, what I hear is there's a story, but you have to read a book.
Oh, well.
Why? What? So, anyways,
the whole reason I even bought an Xbox was Knights of the Old Republic. That was the only game that got me to actually buy an Xbox. And my Xbox never worked right because it froze and crashed all the time. I remember being more frustrated with my Xbox than my PS2, which is saying a lot for that generation.
All right. Well, I've had limited experience with the Xbox, and you've had some experience with the Xbox. You want to move on to the 360?
Because God knows we're going to beat that to death.
I don't know too much I can actually say about the 360 without repeating stuff that people heard about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that in advance if we end up repeating things, but that's what happens when you have a giant-sized episode and you have a launch of a new console that I'm really excited to play. So, screw you guys.
And we're not talking about Xbox One.
Right. So the Xbox 360. Same scenario. What was the first time you remember hearing about the 360? I for some reason, I think you're going to have a better idea of when you remember hearing about it, because I think I had blinders on for the 360. I think for me, I feel like it came out of nowhere. Because I was in this really weird place, video game wise, when the 360 was announced. So when did you first hear about it? What were your initial thoughts on it?
I
started working at GameStop at the end of life of the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. I mean, I basically started around working there around the midnight lunge of Halo 2, pretty close to them. And by that point in time, I worked for a while. I eventually became assistant manager at the new store, and E3 became way more on something I was way more aware of working at GameStop. And the closer to me that you followed the news, the better you could inform the customers, and the better you could be at your job. And being informed, I felt, was a big part of working there. Because I wanted to know what I was talking about. I didn't want to be, one of those guys who...
You didn't want to be the typical GameStop employee?
Well, there's the over-knowledge typical GameStop employee, which uses his supreme amount of douchiness to sell stuff and then looks down upon everybody for their opinions. And then there's, the other GameStop employees who have a base knowledge and are actually there to help customers. And then there's the Best Buy people that work in the game department, but they know absolutely nothing about what they're selling. So I was very closely, paying attention to stuff, and I, watched the announcements about the launch of or when they introduced the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and how I just, from listening to things with them, I just really connected with what was happening with the PlayStation. I'm sorry, with the Xbox 360, and I was more intrigued about the Xbox than I was about the PlayStation 3, and I got really behind the Xbox 360 and started reading stuff about it and just getting really into the system. And
so what was it? Like, do you remember at all what drew you to it? Because
I don't remember. I think it may have been because it was the first one out of the blocks. It could be because at that point in time, it was just the perfect storm of pre-orders were really, really limited on the 360, and working at the store, I had the chance to get one right at launch. And I did pre-order one right away, and I think for me, as I sold my Xbox and all my games, and my PS2 and all my games in towards my 360. Because at that point in time, right before the Xbox 360 launched, the demos for God of War 2 and for Final Fantasy 12 had just come out, essentially killing all love I had for the PlayStation 2 and killing the system for me, because I was so pissed by how terrible the demo was for Final Fantasy 12 and how God of War 2 felt exactly like the first game and didn't feel like it evolved at all. I just automatically decided I'm done. I'm ready for the next generation. But I held on to my GameCube, which I still have in my GameCube. But I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I want to move on to the next generation. I want a head-to-head. I like being at the forefront of something and being there on day one and just riding the wave on in. So that, I think, was kind of my thing. I think it was hyped up because I think all of us in the store were getting 360s. Like, we all talked to each other into it, and I think it was more just a group mentality type of a thing. And a lot of it had to do also with the fact that working at GameStop, we were so burnt out on the PS2. The poor customer service from Sony at the time, the massive amount of hardware failures that they had, and I think
for those of us that had to deal with that on a daily basis, we were just done and ready to switch to a different, just a whole different company. And wanted to distance ourselves as much as possible from Sony and get in bed with Microsoft. I think that's really what it was. Is we were just really fed up with Sony at the store level, at a retail level.
All right. Well, like I said, for me with the 360, I was in this really weird spot in my life where I wasn't gaming all that much. And I've talked about this before on the show. It was 2004. I moved back out to Grand Rapids so I could be with my girlfriend at the time, and I was trying to be responsible with my money because I was taking care of myself, and I kind of shut out anything extra. Like if I couldn't consume it from the internet, I probably wasn't like, as far as articles and stuff goes, I probably wasn't paying attention to it, and I wasn't reading a whole lot of video game blogs because I didn't want to get sucked down the rabbit hole that is video games for me. It wasn't until I want to say it was like sometime in 2000. It had to have been sometime in 2005. I was the first time I can remember someone mentioning to me that in my presence an Xbox 360 was working at the theater. And I think it was a conversation between you and Shepard.
Yep.
And I didn't really, I don't know if I had anything to say because I didn't know anything about it. I just, obviously I knew that I wasn't going to be getting one. Not because I didn't want one, but more, money concerns. That, and even if I had the money, I probably wouldn't have because I wasn't a fan of the Xbox. And that was like it. But I remember, like, I still do remember reading articles about the PlayStation 3 and what Sony was attempting to do with it. I remember watching their E3 conferences with the PlayStation 3. I remember the 360. I didn't watch it, but I remember the 360 had that awful MTV announcement with Elijah Wood.
Yep.
But I never watched that. I didn't watch it. I heard about it.
I think our biggest issue at the time was when Sony came out and started talking PS3. They had this attitude about them that we're Sony. Our system's going to be $600. People are going to pay it because we're Sony. That was the entire mentality of E3 for them that year, which come this year, and to see to me, that's what's funny about the new generation versus the old generations. I feel like there's been a major role reversal between Sony and Microsoft.
Oh, completely.
Now. I think it's a total 180 because the attitude when the 360 and the PS3 launch were flipped for the two companies, and now it's completely the other way. Microsoft's the arrogant, bumbling idiot, and PlayStation 4 is the we're your buddies, we're your pals, we're going to listen to you guys, we're doing what you want us to do.
We're bringing you the games.
Yeah, we're bringing the games. They're more focused on the stuff that the hardcore wants, I feel.
Their message is better.
Yeah, and where Microsoft is now turned into, we're more interested in giving you a media machine than giving you a gaming machine. So it's it was completely reversed back then. I think that's why at GameStop store level, we were super down on the PS3, and we were relentless in driving people away from that machine. Our store was the lowest selling Sony store for PS3 merchandise, hardware and software PS3 sales, we were the lowest in our entire district because everybody that worked at that store was an Xbox guy.
See, I totally agree with what you're saying about Sony. Especially, I rewatched their E3 conference before this year's E3. I found it on YouTube and rewatched it, and it was like night and day differences. I rewatched it after their February announcement of the PlayStation 4, but before their E3 conference. Night and day difference in the messaging, and just watching the announcement of the PlayStation 3. There was like, they almost had like the Fable disease where it was like they announced all this stuff that the PS3 was going to be able to do. And
it's got down to the point where they pretty much said the PS3 was going to cure cancer.
I ran folding at home for a long time. They had all these features in 2005 that they announced that it was going to do this, it was going to do that, it was going to do all this stuff, and then for the next year, they started saying, "Okay, it's not going to do that anymore. Okay, it's not going to do that anymore. It's not. It was Fable. It was Fable all over again. It was the whole Peter Molyneux syndrome." And so I totally agree with you, and I thought the price point of $500 and $600 for a system was outrageous. But if I remember correctly, I think the 360 was $399 and $499, wasn't it? Or did it start at $399?
Wait, for who?
The 360. Didn't it start at $399?
I think it was at $399.
And wasn't the hard drive one $499?
I think so.
Wow, we're really bad at this. Okay, wait a minute. No, sorry. The 20 gigabyte premium model, was $400. The core unit was $300. And this kind of goes back. I remember this being a thing with the 360, which was the fact that all of a sudden you had two SKUs.
Yep.
And it splintered your market. Because
nobody wanted the core system.
Well, but they couldn't just make games that needed the hard drive. Like, they had to be able to run on the core system in case someone grabbed that, Yep. Which hindered, for a little while anyways, hindered some game development on the 360. For me, my first actual experience with a 360, and this kind of doesn't jive with like events in my head very well, was 2006. In fact, it may have been 2006. I'm not entirely sure what happened. I remember I came home. It was over the summer, and I went over to my cousin's house, and he had one. And I was watching him play Oblivion. And I asked him if he had Geometry Wars, and he was like, "No, I don't know what that is." So even though I didn't know about what the 360 was, I was aware of what games were coming out for it. And I told him, I said we need to go in the arcade store, and I don't think he had ever been in there, so we went and downloaded it, and like that was Geometry Wars was probably my first 360 game. And I don't really think there's a better way to be introduced to the 360 and what it can do, because Geometry Wars is a beautiful game. It's a lot. I mean, visually it's not that different from, visually it is different from Resogun because it's different art style, but there's still like really good examples of what can be done with the system as far as particle effects go. And it wasn't until I told this on the last episode or earliest episode, it wasn't until like the fall of 2006 when I had a new job and I had some money and I had an HD TV that I was in the mood or in the market for an HD console, and the PS3 had just come out, but it was $600. I didn't have $600, and Circuit City ran a special on the 20 gigabyte model that Thanksgiving for like $350 with a game, and then I ended up getting a game for free somehow. I'm not entirely sure how that worked out. So now, did you sign up for me, in my opinion, live is the best thing about the Xbox. Xbox Live is. And I'm not talking about like Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff, because I think the fact that that's all behind a paywall is bullshit. But what Xbox Live does really well, in my opinion, is getting you into games with your friends. Did you sign on with that from the get-go?
On Xbox Live.
Yeah, like when you got your 360 or on Xbox, did you have a live account on Xbox
Yeah.
and take it over?
Yeah, I did because man, did I? I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
I remember you telling me a story about how you you weren't able to transfer your gamer tag.
Okay. I did not. I wasn't on Xbox Live right at the beginning because I think I played it for. Man, I want to say I played it. I think for the first 3 months, and then finally, when I got an Xbox Live account, I logged on and tried to use the gamer tag I had been using in the system, and then it told me that I wasn't able to use it on Xbox Live because it had been taken or was registered to somebody else now. And I was like, what the hell? I had an original Xbox account. What the hell's going on? So that was bothersome to me. And then I essentially had to start over with a new name, which was fine. Because I think my original was Weapon XII, and then I had to actually switch it over to Weapon 1-2, which was a little annoying to me. But I got over it. It's fine. Not angry about it still.
No, never angry.
So angry I'm not getting an Xbox One. So yeah.
All right, so yeah, live, and for me, I experienced live once at our friend Andy's house. He had me over one night, and we played Halo 2 on his 360 with Xbox Live. That was a hoot for what it was. But it wasn't until your first diaper party. I went out there, we played Gears of War, and was it Call of Duty 2? Or 3? Anyways,
Yeah.
went out there for that, and I was sold on the idea of multiplayer. When I got back home, I immediately signed up for Xbox Live, and I never looked back until I had an Xbox Live account all the way up until this past September, when I just realized I wasn't going down the Xbox One route. So I just let it lapse, and I haven't looked back since. Some of the games that came out for the Xbox 360 at launch, we have Amped 3, we have Call of Duty 2, we have Condemned, Every Party, FIFA 06, Gun, Cameo, NFL 06, NBA 2K6. Sorry, I was sneezing.
I was gonna say there's more than that.
NBA 2K6, NBA Live 06, Need for Speed Most Wanted, the first one. NHL 2K6, Perfect Dark Zero, Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. Project Gotham Racing 3, Quake 4, Ridge Racer 6, Tetris The Grandmaster Ace, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 06, and Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. Danner, I didn't have one at launch, but you did.
I did.
What did you play?
I played American Wasteland. Was terrible. Gun was also not great because it was pretty much just a upgrade. Both American Wasteland and Gun were just ports of the PS2 Xbox versions with better graphics. But I want to say somehow in American Wasteland they actually ended up taking content out of the 360 version. So actually, the 360 version had less going on in it than the Xbox and PS2 versions did, which was a little weird. Call of Duty 2 was pretty much was the first game like I bought and kept. Because being a GameStop employee, I actually had the ability to check out any game I wanted also. Call of Duty 2 was it was my first real venture into Call of Duty. I dabbled a little bit with the PC version and really liked it, and played Call of Duty 2 and just fucking loved the game. I just that got me into Call of Duty, and I've been pretty much into Call of Duty ever since. And then Cameo was a glorified tech demo for the system. I always refer that every single system seems to have it launched with that platformer game that is a more so this is what the system does type of a thing.
Like Uncharted.
Like Knack.
Oh yeah, Knack, Uncharted Golden Abyss. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's that one game that does all the things that the system does, basically to show off the system. That's kind of what the game there for. That's what Cameo was essentially to me. It was a glorified tech demo to see, look at how many things we can put on the screen at once. Look at what you can do with our controller. Look at what the Xbox 360 does. This is the experience we're going to bring to you. It was just a big glorified tech demo. Perfect Dark Zero is not a great game. I had the most convoluted storyline I think I've ever seen in the game, and it had the absolute worst, most pointless boss fight I think I've ever come across in a game. The final boss fight is just a joke. The only cool thing about Perfect Dark Zero was the fact that you could program bots into the multiplayer. Yeah. Project Gotham was pretty cool for a racing game, but I liked Most Wanted way better. I played the tar out of Most Wanted. That's right. I played a racing game, and I played it a lot. There also wasn't a lot at the beginning of that system, but that was probably the one and only Need for Speed game that I really, really got into, and I played a lot of. I didn't play any of the sports. That's a lie. I played NHL 2K6, which was pretty good. It was a hockey game. I didn't play any other sports games. God, what else was the non-sports titles?
Ridge Racer, Tetris, Tiger Woods, Tony Hawk. I think you covered about all of them.
Okay.
Did you play King Kong?
I did play King Kong.
And Condemned.
Oh, God. Oh, I can't believe I forgot Condemned. King Kong, for those of you that don't remember, Peter Jackson likes video games. Peter Jackson loves it Beyond Good and Evil. Peter Jackson got the guy who did Beyond Good and Evil to make his game. I don't understand what the hell. I don't even understand how to get through the first level of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the video game, the official video game of the movie. It was a fairly pretty looking game, but it was not a great game. It was very forgettable. Hence the reason that most of you probably don't remember it.
Are you moving around?
Incredibly forgettable. A little bit.
Okay, because it's coming through on the mic.
I blamed wood.
Okay.
Okay. Condemned, though. Condemned, I would say, is by far... I don't think it was really appreciated when it came out. I don't think I discovered it until probably a year or 2 years after the launch of the system. But I loved Condemned. It is such a great game. It is so creepy and just so well done. And the main character is voiced by Greg Gutenberg, which I also thought was somewhat interesting. But that game was great. That was by far probably the best launch game for that system, but I don't think people knew a whole lot about it because it was kind of a horror genre style murder mystery, kind of straddled the line between like an investigatory cop game and a horror game. Awesome game. Awesome game. I still, to this day, it's probably the only game from the launch that I still think kind of holds up and is a relevant game. I think you can pretty much dismiss most everything else at the launch, but Condemned is a wonderful game.
All right.
The graphics don't hold up at this point in time. I will say that. The graphics will not hold up, but it is a great, very well done game.
All right. Well, it seems like we really enjoyed the 360.
It would seem that way.
It would
Except
seem
for
that
the
way.
fact that I think we kind of got burnt out at the end.
Well,
I think for me and for you both, Borderlands 2 is kind of the final nail in the coffin for 360.
see, I don't know if I could, because, well, okay, I don't know, because I think if we had, I think that, I don't think playing 360 on the PS3 would have been any better. And when we had sat down to play Borderlands, we didn't really know, the Xbox One, the PS4, they weren't like a thing yet. For me, what I was transitioning into, it wasn't all roses and, wine and roses for the 360. There was a massive dark cloud over top of it. Which instead of a dark cloud is more like a red ring of death.
Yes.
Were you ever affected by this?
Yep.
How many times? Once?
Once. Twice.
Was it before or
once,
after they had done their...
Once under warranty. I was literally a month away from being out of warranty when it did it the first time. So it was... I had a launch system and it went out a month before the 3 years was up. And then I got it replaced, and then that one lasted probably, I want to say, about another... It was long enough to be just out of whatever the next warranty was that they gave me, because I only think they gave me a year.
All right.
And I actually had to go to a GameStop and then trade it in and then buy a core system. And I got one of the last systems with the Falcon chip in it, right before they switched over to the new model, the Slimline model. So I'm still rocking an original style 360, even though my disc tray only wants to open about 10% of the time.
For me, I was hit with the red ring right after, it was fall of 2007. I'd had it for about a year, and I remember it was right around when Orange Box had come out. In fact, no, back up. The demo for Call of Duty 4 had hit with the three greatest maps ever, which are Overgrown, Vacant, and Crash. I remember playing that constantly for hours. And I remember I came home from work one night, working at the theater. It was like 10 p.m. Got home. I was super excited to jump on. I think I was playing with you and Jason at the time. Super excited to get down to business. Went to turn it on. Red ring. I had no idea what to do. I kept trying to turn it on, turn it off, unplug it, plug it back in. Go through all the steps. Long story short, I ended up calling Xbox customer service at 10 p.m. Amazingly, somebody was actually there. Most places, when you call tech support, they're like, you have to call back between these business hours. I was happy to talk to anyone that spoke English at 10 p.m. So I ended up having to send it in. And it was gone for 2 weeks, I think. And then I got a system back. And you don't get your system back when you send it in. And then that system immediately began scratching at my discs, because I remember I'd gotten Orange Box and I was playing Orange Box, and eventually Orange Box wouldn't play anymore. And I was like, what is going on? Turns out I had been putting rings in my discs, so I was able to send it back, and another 2 weeks went by and I got another system back. But by this time I had already made up my mind that, you know what, maybe it's time that I look at the PlayStation 3. Because Sony was just getting ready to drop their price to $399 for the 40 gigabyte model. And, I have gaming magazines with Uncharted coverage in it from when Elena was a brunette. I still have them. But Uncharted was on my radar. I was kind of skeptical of it because it was a Naughty Dog game, and I'd never played any of Sony's first party stuff. But the system that I use to hang out with my friends, and yeah, that kind of makes me sound like a lame guy that I use video games to hang out with my friends. But the problem is, my best friends don't live by me. So we use video games to hang out and stuff like that. But I was been a month since I was actually able to play a game. I was like, I'm done with this. I got my 360 back, and I use it for every once in a while. I still use it a great amount. Luckily, one of the things that Microsoft did that fall with a firmware update was allow you to install your games to the hard drive. Which alleviated a lot of the noise, and two, it alleviated any heat that was generated by the CD drive, which also kept the system a little cooler, so it wouldn't melt itself to death. So as soon as they allowed me to start installing games to the hard drive, I never played a 360 game without installing it, ever. So when people complain about load times and all this stuff, I don't even think about it, because I had to do that with my 360 anyways. I had to install every freaking game. That being said, I did trade in my white 360 for, actually, no, I did not. I gave my white 360 to my sister. And I bought another black one because I hated having a black PS3 and a white 360 in my entertainment center.
Lame.
I hated it so much. But
Faceplates, man. Faceplate.
Well, it was, I couldn't do that. I could not do a black faceplate with a white. I would know it's there. Anyways, what's really funny is I had an original, I had the 40 gigabyte PlayStation 3, which was, gloss black in my entertainment center. And I had a matte black 360. And that kind of, they're both black, they both look nice, but that kind of, on a deep subconscious level that I wasn't really aware of all that often, except for when I was dusting, I was like, man, I really wish they looked the same. And then, Sony came out with the PS3 Slim, which had a matte black finish on it. So I was like, I'll go get that. And I did. So I ended up buying a PS3 Slim. I think I actually traded in my Wii and my original, I traded in my 40 gigabyte PlayStation 3 and my Wii for my PlayStation 3 that I have right now. Because at the time they had announced Donkey Kong Country for the Wii, and I was like, oh, I love Donkey Kong Country, I could play that. And then they said that you couldn't play it with the Pro controller or the classic controller. It's like, I was like, I'm out. Screw you guys, I'm out. So I traded all that stuff in, and I got myself the Slim PS3, and I really like that. But then they released the Xbox with the Kinect. And
with the glossy black.
with the glossy black. Oh my gosh. So whatever. So yeah, I've gone through. I have replaced my consoles in the last 8 years, myself without needing to send them in. My original Xbox gave me way more issues than my PS3 ever did. I know we've heard horror stories from you and from Joe about other customers, and even my cousin was getting like a disc read error on his, but he actually got his repaired by Sony himself. So he was able to get that resolved. I don't know. But man, 8 years. Can you believe it's been 8 years?
I know.
Man.
Feels like it was not yesterday.
Well, I guess we can use this to transition into talking a little bit about the PlayStation 4. Because okay, we're not okay, I just want to clarify something right now. We're not trying to be biased here. We debated covering the Xbox stuff at all because one, none of us are getting an Xbox One. Yet, but I think a lot of that is Microsoft. One, it came down to two things for me. One, it was Microsoft's messaging. That was the big thing. Microsoft's messaging was not at all what I wanted to hear. And then it came down to the price. And this is where it gets kind of interesting and a little funny, I think. $500 with the Kinect. And Sony had undercut them by $100. I couldn't do it. I didn't want the Kinect camera. I really didn't. I would love there to be an Xbox One that was $400 that didn't come with that stupid camera. But at the same time, I find myself more inclined to go and buy the camera for the PlayStation 4 because it's my decision. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not forcing me to spend another $100 for a camera. I get to choose if I want to spend that extra $100, which means there's a feature. In this case, it's the live streaming for the PlayStation 4 that makes me want to go and buy that camera. I think that's a better way to do something. I don't like I don't like being forced into. I feel like they're cramming Kinect down my throat, and Kinect is not something that I want. But if they had sold it separately, and I had gotten my Xbox One and I had turned on the live streaming, and I was like, man, this would be really great if I had a camera. Boom. You would have just sold me a Kinect. I feel like it could have worked both ways. I just feel like Microsoft's messaging was all out of whack. There is one Xbox One game that I'm excited for, which is Titanfall, which is coming to the 360. So if I really want to play it, I can play it on there. Granted, that won't be the best way to play it, but I can still play it. So I just want to say we're not trying to be biased here on Off the Cuff towards the PlayStation 4. It's just that
we are. I mean,
we don't have a way of experiencing with the Xbox One, so we're not. And I don't see us really bashing on the Xbox One, other than what we can actually say we don't like about it. Which at this point, the only thing that I can say that I don't like about the Xbox One is the messaging and the Kinect camera. Those are the only two things I can say that I don't care for it, because one, I never had a problem with their online policies or their game policies or any of that stuff that they laid out as far as games goes. The problem is they just never showed any games that I cared about.
Yeah, and I for me, I think it's more of the same. I think there's like one game that they showed that it was found slightly interesting, and that's a new Insomniac game they're getting. And besides that, I was like, it looks okay.
But see, with the PlayStation 4, we know we're getting Infamous. Now we know we're getting Uncharted. I mean, along with everything else.
Yeah, and it's the only thing that could really deter me at any point in time. Actually, legitimately the only thing, if Microsoft comes out and announces that Fallout 4 is exclusive, I'm gonna die a little bit inside. I don't think that's gonna happen, but that's the only thing that can make me feel that I would have made a mistake.
So we'll still talk about Xbox One news on the podcast. It's just we don't have one, so we can't share any experiences about it or about using it. And I don't really feel like running my mouth off about something that I don't know all that much about. So personally, when we start talking about next gen stuff, it'll all be from the perspective of the PlayStation 4 until we are able to rectify that situation. But all right, moving on. We have spent by the time this goes up, we'll probably spent like 6 days with a PlayStation 4, at least in our houses. Danner and I spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday playing with the PlayStation 4s. Danner, what was your experience like getting out of the box, getting it set up, getting it going? How does that compare to, like, you know, maybe like the first time you set up your PlayStation or like your 360? Like,
it didn't. The box seemed smaller, and it didn't. I remember pulling out so much crap in the 360. I just I just remember there being so much shit to pull out of that box. And with the PlayStation 4, it was like you open it up, there's your system, there's your controller, there's your power supply, there's your headset, there's like a card with some stuff on it and some info. And that was it. I mean, it was bare bones basic. This is the system. We didn't pack in a lot of extra shit in it. Here's your system. You're off you go. Very simple to hook up, very quick to get online and to get going and to get set up. And it was just felt so much simpler and less complicated than other systems, unboxing other systems. Like when the Wii, you got to pull out slot number 1 and then slot number 2 to get your thing in this like compartment out of this box. And just, it felt so easy and so natural and so simple.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they used the same cables from like the PS3 Slim and the PlayStation Super Slim. Also, apparently the PlayStation 2 cables also work.
Huh.
Like as far as a power cable goes. So if you have like a PlayStation 2 or a PS3 Slim or a Super Slim, you can actually just yank that out of your entertainment center and plug your PlayStation 4 right in, and you're ready to go.
I was also a little impressed that I don't know why I didn't think it wouldn't have shipped with an HDMI cord, but I'm always used to, you know, you get the standard AV cables, and anything better you have to go spend extra on. And it was nice that I think this is the first system I've ever gotten that it's like, hey, HDMI cable.
Yeah. Obviously it's the first system you've ever gotten. The Wii U did that too, except the Wii U shipped with a nicer HDMI cable.
I was gonna say I didn't actually use the HDMI.
Oh, neither did I. But I mean, I've
PS4.
I've seen it. I didn't use it.
I appreciated the effort, though.
Yeah, no, it's there. They make sure that you have everything you need to get the best experience out of the box with it. Setup was a snap, like you said. I did. Like we said earlier in this podcast, my wife and we picked up 2 on launch day, and I told her, I said, don't expect both of them to work out of the box. Luckily, both of them do. Which is awesome. Setup was a breeze. As soon as you like I think even before you actually get to the actual like dashboard, the system's already downloading that day one patch. It was just I felt like it was really good. We were up and running really quick. The only story I have to tell about it, which is kind of a funny one, is my wife wanted to try Assassin's Creed before she went to bed, so I was like, okay, I got it all set up for you. We'll throw in Assassin's Creed. And the PlayStation 4 installs every game to the hard drive automatically. You don't have to tell it to do it, it just does it. And we threw in Assassin's Creed, and you can see a little loading bar go across the little icon for it. And so we went to go start playing it, and you get the Ubisoft logo, you get the Assassin's Creed logo, you get the Abstergo Entertainment logo, and then you get a black screen. And the drive just spins and spins and spins. And eventually like a little notification pops up that says DLC failed to load. And the drive just spins some more. And I'm sitting there, my wife's sitting there, and I could tell she's getting a little annoyed. Me, I've been through this before. It's kind of like I don't know what to expect, so I just have to see how this goes. And maybe it was still installing stuff in the background. Like maybe it had done that thing where it installed enough for me to start the game, but not play it yet. Because that's like a thing with like when you download a game now, you can actually start playing it while it's downloading. So I kind of thought that that's what was going on, except I'm looking at a black screen. There's no loading or anything like that. So I got to experience one of the cooler things about the PlayStation 4. You can actually jump out to the dashboard and do other things while a game is running.
Yay.
I went into the store and I downloaded Resogun, and that downloaded and installed while it was still trying to load Assassin's Creed. Went back in, filled around with it. It wasn't working. Went and deleted the install because it said that all 21 gigs of the game had been installed to the hard drive. And so I went and uninstalled it and, went to reinstall it and stuff like that to see if it would work. It just wasn't working. Finally, I was like, you know what? Let's put in another one of the games that I got to see maybe we have a bad disc. And I went and popped the disc out of the tray and I flipped it over. Sure enough, there is a giant fingerprint on the bottom side of the disc. And it was preventing the laser from reading the disc to tell the game to start. So
This is why you don't eat pizza and then wipe your greasy fingers all over your game discs.
yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened. My wife insists she didn't touch the bottom of the disc, but I never handled it myself.
Bullshit.
So I wiped it off real quick and stuck it back in. Boom, played just fine. After that, everything worked except for Battlefield 4, which worked for the first day and then it never worked again.
It's a beautiful game when it works.
Oh my gosh, I can't get over. For me, of the games that I have, Resogun, Need for Speed Rivals, and Battlefield 4 are probably the best looking games I've played so far. Were you expecting games to look like this? Were you expecting Battlefield 4? Like way back, like this entire last year, you see the screenshots, you watch the trailers online, you hear about people telling you that, internet video can't show you how good a game looks. Were you expecting Battlefield 4 to look as good as it did?
No.
I wasn't.
I knew it was gonna look good, but fuck.
Yeah, and there's a night and day. There's almost like this weird. I want to say night and day, but it might not be that drastic. There is a huge difference between Call of Duty, Ghost, and Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
Like Call of Duty looks like a Call of Duty game running at 1080p.
Don't get me wrong, Call of Duty still looks really good, but
no, it looks good.
Battlefield just damn.
Yes. When you can get up next to a leaf and it doesn't just turn into a texture blob, like you can see the leaf, like my mind was blown. I can't wait to see games like Infamous, Watch Dogs. I I don't even know anymore. But I do. We did try out the Twitch streaming, or I did, anyways. I will be doing more of that, and as I said, I will be seeking out a PlayStation 4 camera, so you'll be able to interact with me. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.com/BoothNinja81. You can also follow me on Twitter at BoothNinja81, because when I start a stream, it automatically sends out a link, so you guys can check that out if you have the time. I do like the streaming feature stuff. I have not tried posting to Facebook, which you have.
I tried to do a video and I did not have any luck because I tried to edit the video and then it's like, okay, you got 12 minutes and 37 seconds of video. And then I went to edit it and it goes, there's no video content. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I didn't really care. I was just goofing around with it. So it wasn't something important, even though it was the first glitch I've run into in the system, which was I was playing Assassins first 10 minutes into the game and ran up a wall and then fell directly through the wall and got stuck inside the wall and had to reload the checkpoint. Which was like, yay, next generation.
All right. What is your... Okay, I talked a little bit about the controller an hour ago on this podcast.
It's so beautiful and perfect. It just feels wonderful. I like it.
I can't tell if you're mocking me.
I'm not. I don't gush about controllers ever. And this is the first one I'm just like, it barely feels like you're holding anything. It just feels fantastic.
Agreed. So what's your favorite thing about the PS4 so far? Like favorite game, favorite feature?
Resogun.
Resogun? Yeah, I was gonna say Resogun too. It's the one game that I just kept going back to like all weekend, and I'm not sure if that's because it's on the system and I don't have to swap the disc out for it.
And I also want to say I enjoy playing co-op way more than I enjoy playing by myself, but it's still a good single player game.
All right.
But I got way more out of the time that we played it than any other time.
Well, we should try that again sometime.
We should.
So, yeah, I really liked Resogun. Playing it though, I'm hoping that Stardust HD gets an HD remix.
The HD squared
remix? Or like maybe it'll be Super Stardust Full HD remix. Because
is it partial HD?
Well, 1080p is considered full HD.
Yeah.
And I think Super Stardust only runs at 720 on the PS3. So I would like to see that game come over. I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. You never realize how slow, or I never realized how slow the PS3 was and the 360 was until I got the PS4.
Yeah.
Like 8 years was something you just expect it to be that way. Like, that's not how it has to be.
I almost fear to go back to play something on one of the older systems just because the PS4 is going to ruin me on this.
I feel like if you went back to, like, here's the thing. The PS4 is awesome and it's fast and it's way faster than like the PS2, the PlayStation, the PS2, the PS3 and stuff like that. But I feel like if you went back to the Super Nintendo, like those games are just as fast. Like that because they're cartridge based. They're just as fast. It's just I don't know. There's no menus, there's no extra overhead or anything like that. But the thing about this is like the PS4 does a whole lot of stuff and none of it seems to impact your gaming.
No, not at all.
And I'm really excited to see where this, like, if this goes for another 8 years, just think about for a second where the 360 started with its dashboard and its blades. Oh, I miss the blades so much. And its lack of Netflix and streaming media features, and the PlayStation 3 with its lack of everything. And where they are now, 7 and 8 years later, that's like the PS4 and the Xbox One are starting there. But like still like maybe they're like 1 year ahead. Like we have them now, but I think like technology wise, they're like a year ahead of the PS3 and the 360.
Yeah.
But we have them now, so I'm just trying to imagine what they're going to look like, 7, 8 years from now. Which, if you don't have anything else to add, I have an excellent question to ask the listeners. And then we can wrap this up. But there's a lot of talk about this being the last console generation. Do you guys think this is it? Or do you think we will see another round of consoles within the next decade? So just think about that for a little bit. And if you want to, you can let us know what you think about that. Or if you got a PlayStation 4, why don't you friend us up? I'll give you that information in a second. You can friend us up. Let us, if you also got one, let us know what games you're playing. Maybe we got some of the same games and we can all play together. But if you want to get in touch with us and let us know about what you think about, is this the last generation of consoles, or about the question that I can't remember right now from the last episode, you can get in touch with us and comment on our parent site at geekcastradio.com, or send emails to us at feedback@geekcastradio.com. Just put off the cuff in the subject line, and we'll make sure that it gets to us. If you listen to us on iTunes, please submit us a review. 5 stars if you want to, 1 stars if you have to. Just let us know how we're doing, even if you think we're idiots. We want to know what you think. So with that, you can find myself, Michael Powers, on Twitter and the PlayStation Network at BoothNinja81. You can also find me on Twitch, like I mentioned earlier, at twitch.com/BoothNinja81. If you do send me a friend request, expect a real name request to come back. Because that's really cool. I think that's one of my favorite features so far. Danner?
You can find me on Twitter at ArtDanner, or on PlayStation Network at X51 the Machine Man.
All right. So with that, this wraps up Off the Cuff's first giant-sized podcast, which was the PlayStation and the Xbox One launch. So, talk to you guys next week.
Peace.